everybody, and welcome to the first ever Metro Denver Continuum of Care Convening. My name is Kyla Moe, and I am the Deputy Director of Metro Denver Homeless Initiative. And we are so thrilled to have such an incredible turnout today for our first ever event. We have 250 that registered in person, and we have another 300 that are joining virtually online. So thank you all for taking time out of your day and joining us today. This is a huge moment for our community to come together across sectors to collaborate, learn, and build solutions to end homelessness in Metro Denver. So just want to start with a couple thank yous. Of course, a big thank you to our host, the Boulder Jewish Community Center, for having us in this beautiful space today. And then our lunch is being provided by the Boulder Bridge House Community Table Kitchen. So thank you for them for supporting lunch. And if you guys have not already, there is a cafe down the hall, down towards the elevators, Cafe at the J, and they will offering a 15% discount today if you show your name tag or say that you're with community. So thank you to them as well. And then this event would not be possible without our sponsors. So we want to thank our sponsors as Insperity, Walmart, and First Bank. Their generous support helps us strengthen our collective efforts and deepen impact across the region. And then we have some of our community partners at the back. So feel free to stop by throughout the event. They'll be there all day. We have Mile High United Way and their 211 Help Center, which helps connect people to food, housing, childcare, and essential services statewide. So they're back there. We have Benefit in Actions. They provide application assistance for benefits like SNAP, Medicaid, Medicare, and they also run an unhoused program supporting diverse communities to get connected to resources they need to thrive. We have the Denver Workforce Development, which is part of the Denver Economic Development and Opportunity Organization, and they serve as a free, comprehensive employment and training resource for job seekers and employers throughout Denver. And then we have Laboratory to Combat Human Trafficking, who is a leader in Colorado's anti-trafficking movement. Their team has trained over 80,000 people, conducted research to drive action and inform policy change, and they also run the Colorado 24/7 trafficking hotline. So again, take time today to go back and see our vendors in the back room. Okay, here is the agenda overview for today. Again, kind of a packed day, excited to have you all here. You know, right now we are in opening session. We will wrap that up about 10:40, and then we will go into the breakout sessions. So we'll have breakout session 1, and I'll announce that after where you guys need to go. So there's 3 different breakouts. And then we'll have networking lunch, which again will be back here to get your lunches, but then you can kind of, stay here and eat. There's places outside you can eat as well. And then in the afternoon, after lunch, about 12:50, we'll break out into the second breakout sessions, and we'll announce which rooms and which sessions then. And then we'll all gather back here around 2 o'clock to do a closing and wrap up. And then before we begin our packed agenda, we want to take a moment to acknowledge the land that we are on and the people who have stewarded it long before us. To read this acknowledgement, I would like to welcome Aliberto Mendoza from the city of Longmont.
Good morning, everyone. As a member of Homeless Solutions for Boulder County and from the city of Longmont, thank you so much for joining us here today. And I want to go ahead and read out our land acknowledgement, acknowledging the reality of where we live and where we come from. We honor and acknowledge that Colorado is located on the traditional territory and ancestral homeland of the Arapaho, Cheyenne, and Ute nations. More than 48 tribes and nations call Colorado home. We recognize that Indigenous peoples are the original stewards of this land. We acknowledge and celebrate the continued achievements of Black Americans and their transformational impact on American society. This country was founded on stolen land and built by stolen people. We invite everyone in this space to recognize their ancestors and the forces of history that brought you here, as well as the work you are engaged in to support collective liberation and the liberation of future generations. Thank you.
Thank you, Alberto, for reading that. This acknowledgement reminds us that our work doesn't happen in a vacuum. It exists in a landscape shaped by history, by policy, and by systems that haven't always served everyone equitably. But each of us here today plays a part in changing that reality. That's why we've come together to connect, to learn, and to build something bigger, better across our region. Okay, and to help us kick off the day, I am honored to introduce our opening speaker, Boulder County Commissioner Marta Lochamin. Commissioner Lochamin represents District 2 and serves as the lead commissioner on housing and homelessness for the county. As a longtime Longmont resident, Marta brings not only deep roots in this community, but also a bold vision for how we can address complex social challenges with creativity and collaboration. Marta's career spans education, housing advocacy, real estate, and civic leadership. She has helped hundreds of families realize homeownership, has trained leaders across the country through the Hispanic Wealth Project, and was appointed by Governor Polis to the Colorado Workforce Development Council. Her commitment to racial equity, economic justice, and inclusive policymaking is reflected in every step of her work. Whether it's championing statewide disaster recovery efforts or serving on local boards to elevate community voices. Please join me in welcoming Boulder County Commissioner Marta Lochamin.
Buenos dias. It's truly an honor to be here with each of you today and to stand alongside so many dedicated individuals and organizations working tirelessly to solve homelessness across our region. I want to begin by expressing my deep appreciation for Boulder County staff who do this work day in and day out. Sonara Hinton, Trevor Behringer, I'm looking for y'all, Heidi Grove, Susana Lopez Baker, Gwen Mossman, and all of our dedicated county staff. Your efforts are essential to the progress we've made, and I'm grateful for your commitment and your heart. Thank you. To our nonprofit partners, thank you. Your innovation, dedication, compassion, and resilience are what carry this work forward. I want to recognize a few of the incredible organizations operating in Boulder County, and this is not the only ones that are there. We just grabbed a few. In Boulder County, All Roads, Hope Longmont, Focus Reentry, Haven Ridge, Annie and Millie's Place, SPAN, EFA, Our Center, Sister Cardamom, Together, and many more. Wonderful organizations who work together to prevent homelessness, as well as provide connections to housing solutions and resolutions for those experiencing homelessness. You each bring a piece of the solution, and together you make the system more human and more just. Let's be clear, this work is not easy. It's often messy, it's emotional, and it can be exhausting. But it is necessary. And I thank each and every one of you for staying in it, for showing up, for advocating, for believing in something better. It takes a lot of will and a lot of skill. The past 5 years have been beyond taxing on all of you. And even when it may not feel like it, your commitment changes and saves lives. In Boulder County, we've made it a priority to not just talk about solutions, but to structure our local response in a way that allows us to meet this moment. That's why we created a new division in 2024, which focuses on access to affordable housing with additional supports that focus on housing solutions as a solution to homelessness. This division forms part of the new housing department to reflect this stake in the ground. We recognize that if we want to do this work well, it can't be a side conversation. It must be centered and resourced. Through the creation of our housing department, we're also reframing what it means to have a housing system that works for everyone, from those who are unhoused to those seeking the opportunity to own a home. Because we know that safe, stable housing is a human right. And we also know that homeownership is one of the most powerful tools for building generational wealth in the United States of America, especially for communities who have been historically excluded by governmental policies and practices. Across Boulder County and the region, we're seeing elected officials come together to have honest, solutions-focused conversations about housing and homelessness. Through spaces like Metro Area County Commissioners and Metro Mayor's Caucus, we're not just identifying challenges, we're moving toward shared accountability and action. During my time as the chair of the Metro Area County Commissioners, we worked across the 7 counties to identify the need to provide supports for those in housing by agreeing to use the federal all-in-one plan and take advantage of the critical federal framework guiding elimination of homelessness around the United States. These supports are critical to the success and stabilization factors needed to ensure that homelessness, when it occurs, is only a one-time event. With this commitment, we are doing more collaborative work. Last year, the Metro Area County Commissioners unanimously supported the passage of the Medicaid waiver. This waiver will open opportunities to fund supportive services that are critical to long-term housing stability. And I also want to acknowledge our Boulder County community for passing in November 2023 an affordable and attainable housing tax. This funding will directly support renovation of units, support construction and development, maintain housing supporting services, and also invite grant opportunities for innovation that will address the structural racism for more equitable outcomes in housing. That's a powerful statement of what our values are and what we're willing to invest in. Homelessness is not the result of personal failure, it's the result of systemic barriers. Racism, income inequality, housing market pressures, and lack of mental health and substance use resources. Solving this dilemma requires us to address those root causes together and to work across systems. That's why we remain committed to equity, not just as a word that we say, but as an outcome towards which we build programs, allocate resources, and design systems. Data must continue to inform our decisions, and we must continue to ask whose voices are missing from the conversation and how do we commit to bring those voices in to get collective results that bring us closer to housing stability. I cannot stand in this room in front of all of you who are working on the front lines every day and not acknowledge that the United States is facing a crisis of empathy. Our social safety net is being threatened by the current federal administration. Each day in the news, we read about another program, another service, another department that may be closed down or reduced to such a limited staff or budget that it cannot reach those who need the services the most. We in Colorado are not immune to these changes in 2024. 14% of Boulder County revenue came from federal funding sources. And while we continue to monitor the situation and speak to our congressional representatives and go to Washington, D.C., it's still unclear how we will work within our future budgets. And at the same time, everyone here today knows that as the cost of living continues to rise due to increasingly chaotic economic policies and decisions at the federal level, we will see an increase in homelessness. The federal government's own research in 2020 estimated that $100 increase in median rent was associated with a 9% increase in the estimated homelessness rate. I want to conclude by encouraging each and every one of you to not go into a silo, to not retreat into a silo. It's imperative that we build a wider network, that we collaborate, that we align, and we avoid duplication. Every dollar, every hour, every effort must be strategic and be shared. We are stronger together. We have a real opportunity in this moment, not only to respond to homelessness, but to transform how we work on housing as a region. I believe in our ability to do that, and I believe in you. Thank you again for the work that you do and the opportunity to share today with each one of you. Let's keep going together. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Commissioner. Next, I would like you all to join me in welcoming Jason Johnson, who is the new Executive Director of Metro Denver Homeless Initiative.
Good morning. All right, technology. Let's hope this works for me today. Commissioner, thank you for the inspiration, for articulating so clearly why we're all here together today. It's just a joy to have you with us, and thank you for that warm welcome. As Kyla said, my name is Jason Johnson. I have the great honor of serving as the director of the Metro Denver Homeless Initiative. I'm 4 months in, and it's just been such a pleasure to get to know this organization, get to know the team, and be considered their colleague. It really has been a great early point in my, what I hope is a long tenure with the organization. It's really good to be here in Boulder. Thank you again to the JCC for hosting us. I'm a Boulderite. I grew up here. I grew up literally in this area. I went to Eisenhower Elementary, Nevin Platt Junior High, Fairview High School, did undergrad at CU. So I really feel at home here. And I also feel at home with all of you. It's really, as I look out on this capacity crowd, it brings me a lot of joy to know that we've all come together to learn, to deepen our connections with one another, to deepen our understanding of this issue, and figure out a path forward. So thank you again for being here. Really very deeply appreciative of your time. I wanted to spend a few moments talking about the Metro Denver Homeless Initiative, or MDHI. We play a critical role in the system, and just wanted to outline some of what we do in partnership with all of you. But before I do that, I have to acknowledge 3 people. There are 3 incredible leaders at the Metro Denver Homeless Initiative who pulled this convening together. Laura's in the back. I saw Sophia, but she may be in the lobby now. Oh, Sophia and Sarah are both in the lobby, but let's thank them. You know, it takes many hands to pull something like this off. We don't have an event planner on staff. When this event was conceived, we didn't have budget identified to pull this off. And these three individuals really leaned in. They stepped up when the call went out for a working group to pull this together. And they really have done a fantastic job. It's evident by the fact that all of you are here. And I just, again, thank you. MDHI is an organization that serves as the federally designated Metro Denver Continuum of Care. It's our mission to lead and advance collaboration to end homelessness in Metro Denver. We have a vision of a region where everyone has a safe, stable place to call home. Is this the clicker? Yeah? Oh, great. Do I point it somewhere? Oh, the big green button. There we go. All right. Specifically, MDHI coordinates a regional end to homelessness in Adams, Arapahoe, Boulder, Broomfield, Denver, Douglas, and Jefferson counties. We achieve this mission across the region in partnership with all of you by serving as a planner, convener, and administrator. Specifically, we do this by hosting, facilitating, there we go. We do this by hosting and facilitating and participating in strategic conversations across the metro region with providers, private and public funders, government leaders, advocates, people with lived experience of homelessness, educators, and really anyone else committed to solving this issue. MDHI serves as the lead agency for Colorado's Homeless Management Information System, or HMIS, which houses data about the people accessing services related to homelessness throughout Colorado. MDHI organizes and facilitates the annual point-in-time count and survey of people living unhoused in Metro Denver. This is a federally required snapshot of literal homelessness on a single night in January every year. MDHI is the coordinated entry administrator, locally known as One Home, which matches individuals, youth, and families to appropriate available housing resources. MDHI also hosts a planning and monitoring process that invests more than $35 million in funding from HUD each year to service providers whose programs help house individuals, families, and youth. Today is just one example of how we bring people together to address homelessness across the region. And I can speak for the entire agency when I state how happy we are that each of you are here. We acknowledge that a day when you are here is a day that you're not doing your critical life-saving work. I believe that you'll find today's convening of great value. This event was at capacity within 48 hours of opening registration. There are 250 people here in the room, 300 online. I believe that the participation at this scale, it tells us that you're interested in deep learning, connecting with each other, connecting as a community of expert practitioners. And I'm just so proud that MDHI could create this space for all of you today. Thank you again. Thank you again and again and again for being here. I look forward to speaking with you again at the end of the day as part of the closing, and look forward to engaging with you throughout the day as we continue to build a relationship designed to end homelessness, which I believe is possible. Thanks.
So we have 3 presentations related to the Direct Service Toolkit. So please join me in welcoming our first presentation, the Community Economic Defense Project, and Christina Garcia is going to kick us off.
Can you guys hear me if I stay away from the mic? Okay, good. No? Does this guy work? I can't stay still, so I will. All right.
He's got the clicker.
Fine, I will stay right here. Good morning, everyone. I'm Christina Garcia. I use she, her pronouns. I'm the Chief Program Officer for the Community Economic Defense Project, and I'm joined by my amazing colleagues, Ruby, Shana, and Brianna. No te esconda. We are here to talk about homelessness prevention programs that we administer at CDP. I'm getting back in front of the mic. We are just going to give you a high-level overview of the programs that we administer and get you some information on how to get your folks connected so that we can make sure folks stay in their homes. So a little bit about CDP. We just turned 5 years old. We started during the pandemic as the COVID-19 Eviction Defense Program, something like that. I wasn't there. And we needed to rebrand ourselves because unfortunately the need continued beyond the pandemic. And we started with an all-volunteer group of lawyers who put up a post on Facebook and they were like, we have free eviction prevention support for folks. And then the next day they had about 400 replies because the need was unfortunately very incredible during that time. So our organization is statewide. We have 4 different regions that we serve, that we have hubs at, and the newest one is up in the northeast region. Oh, thank you. There we go. I don't have to break my neck here? Okay. Our impact for 2024, this team behind me leads an incredible group of folks that are able to get rental assistance out the door in lightning speed, which is what's needed to actually stabilize folks in their homes, right? Like the courts are not gonna wait for months and months and months until the rental assistance check is dispersed. And in just 2024, they dispersed $73.5 million, and mortgage assistance, they dispersed $12.5 million, and they served over 3,000 households in just 1 year. Thank you. And we have our incredible DOH team over here, so I can't neglect the Thor funding that we've dispersed in 2024. And we dispersed $429,000, and that is just a start. Our goal was to set up regions across the state, and now we're really rocking and rolling with those funds getting out the door. So more to come on that. And with that, I will kick it over to Ruby.
Thank you. All right, how to get in contact with us. What is CDP doing? So we've created multiple avenues to have that access for clients and partners. We have community partner referrals that have identified certain eligibility criteria to make the referrals directly to CDP. This would be our Thor funding and legal referrals as the most common. For in-person assistance, we also have our offices in Denver, Colorado Springs, and Durango for clients to be directed for in-person assistance and help with intake and applications. Clients are referred over through the coordinated entry, legal partner referrals via clinics, or intake referrals. Through weekly county eviction courts, clients are able to get assistance via legal partners and assistance applying for rental assistance as well. The direct access to intakes are always available in our CDP website. Lastly, but the most important, our care center, who manages all calls for the state, the SARA program, manages all calls for TRUA for the city and county of Denver, and the state's emergency mortgage assistance program, among the most frequently asked for. If any questions or directions to an assistance is needed, the care center is the access point to start and direct your clients to. Oh. Okay. Gracias. So the care center, within our flyers that we will pass out to you all shortly to share out, our website is there, the care center contact. You can find through our direct website as well as our intake links. All program flyers have the direct phone number as well to the care center, as well as their own website, the carecenter.us website, where you can have access to chat as well as other resource connections. You can call or text the Care Center, and then the flyers will also have that direct phone number to reach out to this amazing first point of entry, right, for our clients.
Hi, another way that our community and specifically tenants facing the eviction process with at least a court summons interfaces with us and gets in communication about rental assistance programs is through Eviction Prevention Clinic. So we staff various county courthouses where the eviction process is taking place in Denver County, Arapahoe County, Adams County, and now we would enter that space in Commerce City and also through our office in Colorado Springs. So we work alongside legal partners such as our sister law firm, CED Law, Colorado Legal Services, Colorado Poverty Law Project, and the Colorado Affordable Legal Services to offer both legal assistance. They offer the assistance and advice, and we do application assistance, general knowledge towards the rental assistance for tenants specifically. All right, the big state rental assistance program is called the Colorado Emergency Rental Assistance Program, SARA. Previously it was called ERAP, if anyone's familiar with that. But it is offering rental assistance for anybody at risk of eviction or displacement throughout the state of Colorado. There's essentially no county that we haven't served and sent a check to there. So there's two ways to apply in terms of access points. There's the monthly random selection. They offer those dates for about 3 days each month to open up a pre-application for anyone with a demand or further. Apart from that access point would be the Care Center's daily random selection for folks with a court summons or more urgent. So there's a way for folks to get access and be put onto a wait list to be served through the SARA program by looking at the DOH website or calling our Care Center and providing that information any time of the month. They can educate folks on when the next one is. And then the limits to the SARA program are 7 months of rent or $10,000, whichever one of those limits gets hit first. So there's various eligibility requirements. We can talk about that for a long time, but I'll be brief. You must be a Colorado resident with proof of Colorado residency. You must also be within 60% of the area median income. You must be at risk of eviction or displacement and have experienced a significant life event affecting your ability to pay rent. There is, what is our next slide? Okay, there it is. Yeah, there is a Denver County specific program for rental assistance called the Temporary Rental and Utility Assistance Program. We shorten that to TRUA. That one, households must have a current rent demand or further along in the eviction process. They cannot have already received TRUA in the current calendar year of 2025. In next year's, that's going to look a little bit different, where their eligibility won't be for the last 24 months. And that access point is also through a monthly random selection that the host office maintains themselves. And that's every third Tuesday. So that one's scheduled for the rest of the year. Those are all listed on their website. Every third Tuesday, the application opens. The times have been changing, so you can, if you're sharing this information, please just look up every single month. But they can apply every month, and they must reside within the city and county of Denver. That's the specific part about the TRUA program. That program also offers utility assistance and or relocation assistance if the tenant is in need of that to stabilize themselves. I think I'm hitting the wrong green one. There we go.
All right, my name is Shauna Elvier. I'm the VP of Eviction Prevention Programs, and my pronouns are she, her. So Brianna went over our couple of our largest rental assistance programs. We recently this year have been in Commerce City, which is really exciting. It's a rental assistance program or housing assistance program for just the residents of Commerce City. We offer rental assistance, mortgage assistance, utility assistance, and then something really cool, vehicle repair assistance as well. Eligibility for this program is as such, 80% or under AMI, must be at risk of some sort of eviction or displacement or utility shutoff. And then just household with a documented hardship, and some prioritizations there as well. For all of our rental assistance programs, we thrive in making really quick payments. So some of the cases that we get, we can pay within hours, some within days to stop the sheriff or stop the eviction process in whole. For this specific program, $8,000 per household per 12 months and a 3-month cap as well. Oh, it's fancy. All right, and then we also are operating our homelessness resolution program. And this affects folks that are living in Colorado, a lower AMI for these programs as well. So this is 30% or under the area median income. And then similar eligibility for folks that are losing their housing, currently experiencing homelessness, fleeing domestic violence, or without other housing options, which we know are hard to come about. Assistance available for this program is rental arrears, utility assistance, relocation as well, and then moving cost and application fees, which can be, you know, expensive for folks. I don't know where to put it. Okay, going back to Ruby.
Thank you. For homeowners. So if you're working with homeowners, we do also work with the Emergency Mortgage Assistance Program. This is a statewide assistance. And this application helps homeowners with past due mortgage payments. If they are delinquent or have a foreclosure, their application also gets prioritized. Within the application, homeowners are able to apply for assistance for property taxes if they pay them outside of their mortgage monthly amount, as well as homeowner insurance. HOA fees as well. If property tax or HOA liens are identified in their application, homeowners also get that prioritization, again, to keep homeowners housed and not losing their home. Utility assistance as well, they're able to request through this application assistance. And for mobile home owners, this is a very unique application as well, because they're able to get assistance with mobile home loans if they have them. If they own their mobile home, they're able to apply for lot rent assistance also if they live in a mobile home community, which is a great program. The foreclosure prevention team also works the Commerce City assistance that Shauna walked us through. Foreclosure prevention team also has a housing counseling program. And this is services for homeless counseling, rental assistance, eviction prevention, as well as homeowners or foreclosure prevention counseling services. While clients are getting through assistance, financial assistance through other programs, we're also able to refer them to our housing counseling program to work with a HUD housing counselor within CDP. And very new and very exciting, the property tax relief program. Now it's been ongoing pre-COVID, but this is the first year that CDP will also be part of distributing this property tax relief for the city and county of Denver residents. Here is the homeowner eligibility. It is for homeowners and renters. So for homeowners, must have been 65 years or older, have a disability or have a minor child in the house, occupy their home and have paid off their 2020, this should be 2024, I apologize, property taxes, and under or at an AMI of 60%. For renters, similar criteria for the eligibility, 65 years or older, or have a disability and meet either the 25% of AMI for single renters or 30% AMI for couple renters. Super exciting to be launching this program for the 2024 property tax relief year, which will start May 1st, which will also be part of our care center that you can direct clients to, or our website for more assistance. And lastly, we share here a QR code for you to scan and hopefully find for guidance for any questions that you might have that we have in this document regarding SARA and TRUA rental assistance. And with that, thank you for your time.
I'm going to add that we brought flyers both in English and Spanish on the back that we'll leave right up here for folks to access if you want to share, make copies with all of your friends. Thank you.
Thank you so much, CEDP. And if you guys have any questions for them, if we have time at the end of the session, we will try to run it. If not, use the note cards and just put like subject to CEDP questions with your name and email, and we'll make sure the staff gets it to help answer any questions. So next, I would like to welcome up our regional coordination team members to go through our One Home coordinated entry process.
My name is Katie Owens. I am the Systems Improvement Lead on the Regional Coordination Team. I use they, them pronouns.
Hi, my name is Megan Morales. I am the Coordinate Entry Lead at Metro Denver Homeless Initiative, and my pronouns are she, her.
Yeah, so today we're going to present to you about the coordinated entry system. First, we're going to talk through what is coordinated entry. Then we're going to go over One Home coordinated entry eligibility, the 4 components of coordinated entry, our workflow for the coordinated entry system, and then as well as the veteran coordinated entry process. And then if we have time, we'll have a little bit of time for questions, or as Kyla mentioned, you can write them down on the cards and we'll get back to you later about that.
All right, so I'm going to go over the basics of what coordinated entry is. So every continuum of care across the country is required to operate a coordinated entry system by Housing and Urban Development. Coordinated entry, the purpose is to ensure that people have fair and equal access to housing resources to resolve their housing crisis. And through coordinated entry, individuals and families are quickly identified, assessed, prioritized, and referred to housing and assistance as resources become available. And we always look at needs and preferences as well. And some projects are required to use coordinated entry for 100% of their referrals. These are usually federally funded projects through the Continuum of Care Grant or the Emergency Solutions Grant, where there's the eligibility criteria of experiences of homelessness. And we also have state and local funders that require either 50% or more of the vacancies that come through their projects to have referrals from coordinated entry. Okay, so this is just a graphic for coordinated entry. So with coordinated entry, basically, people can show up at a variety of different locations. For example, someone who's staying in an encampment can get connected to an outreach worker. That outreach worker is an access point. They complete a coordinated entry assessment with them. They continue working with that household on problem solving, other stuff like that, basic needs, or getting access to benefits or other services. And then they're in this coordinated entry system, and then those who are prioritized are referred directly to a housing resource. So before, for example, people would have to go to every single housing project, get on a wait list, and have record of which projects they were on a wait list for. And so through coordinated entry, they can get those direct referrals if they're prioritized, and then they can just immediately start working with that project. Katie.
All right, so I'm going to go over what the One Home coordinated entry system is. So One Home is the local branding for the Metro Denver coordinated entry system, and that includes, that's across our 7 counties, which, as Jason mentioned earlier, is Arapahoe, Adams, I didn't write all of them down, so I'm probably going to forget some. Boulder, Broomfield, Denver, Douglas, Jeffco. That's all of them? Great. And thank you. There are 3 other coordinated entry systems in Colorado. So you have Balance of State, Pikes Peak, and Northern Colorado. For our One Home Coordinated Entry system, we are collecting data and managing that within the Colorado HMIS, or Homeless Management Information System. So we're going to have our assessments, our profiles, all of that are going to be stored there, as well as data from other systems. And then just want to go through the eligibility a little bit for our coordinated entry system. We do require the federal definition of literal homelessness, so this is a HUD definition that we have to follow. There are a handful of additional resources for young adults and parenting youth that are for imminent risk of homelessness. And then I'm going to go over just a couple of examples of literal homelessness. So literal homelessness is defined as a family or an individual who lacks a fixed place to stay that is safe and is their home, basically. So one of the examples of that would be a public or private place that's not meant for human habitation. This can be emergency shelter, staying on the streets. It can also include like RVs that aren't hooked up to water, safe outdoor spaces, pallet shelters. So there's a lot of examples of this. It also includes people who are in an institution for 90 days or less who were experiencing homelessness prior to entering that institution. So that would be jails, hospitals, rehab facilities, etc. If a household was not experiencing literal homelessness prior to entering one of those systems, they would not be considered literally homeless while they're in that system. But if they exit to homelessness, then they would be literally homeless at that time. So that's literal homelessness. And then Megan's going to go through the next part.
And I'll add to that, households that are fleeing domestic violence are also considered literally homeless. And that's if they have nowhere else to go after they're fleeing, or while they're fleeing. So there are 4 elements of coordinate entry. They're access assessment, prioritization, and referral. And so we're going to go deeper into these. The first one is access, and it refers to locations where people who are experiencing homelessness access the coordinate entry system. So people know where to go, basically, and that would be publicly available as well. And then at access points, they would get continued engagement on things like getting connected to benefits, working on obtaining vital docs, how to access shelter or other basic needs. They don't necessarily have to have shelter on site, but how to access it. And they can also support with housing applications for resources that are outside of coordinate entry. And then at least one person at an access point must be trained in HMIS. The exception to that is victim service providers, which we often refer to as domestic violence providers. They are either not required or not allowed to use HMIS to protect the safety and privacy of survivors. So we use a side process outside of HMIS to make sure that those VSPs, victim service providers, can still participate in coordinate entry and be referred to housing. And we have an access point map. I'll show it right here. There. Okay. So the access point map is on our need help page, the MDHI need help page. As you can see, we have a lot of access points across our metro region. The map goes over what subpopulations they support, what their hours, locations, and other ways, other kind of services they provide, and any contact information. And so you can always direct that if you're working with someone and you're not an access point, you can use this access point map to find someone who can support them through coordinate entry.
All right, then I'm going to talk about the assessment. So the assessment documents vulnerabilities, needs, preferences, housing barriers, and such for a household, and is used when determining prioritization and referral. We'll talk through prioritization and referral a little more in depth later in this presentation. One of the things we want to highlight is that we no longer use the VI SPDAT. This is a shift that we made in 2024, and the assessment that we're now using is the One Home Coordinated Entry Standard Assessment. This was a shift that we made to have a system that is more trauma-informed and accessible, and was also informed by data as well as community feedback and the feedback of those who've experienced having the assessment completed with them. The assessment is population-specific, so we have 3 different assessments. We have single adults, and that's going to be any household that is over 25. families, and then transition-aged youth, or TAY, which is households that are 18 to 24. And each of those assessments just gathers a little bit of different information. For example, families, we need to know age of children, how many household members, and that's to determine what kind of housing intervention we can provide for that household. All of these assessments can be updated or redone if the household situation changes. So let's say a family ceases to be a family, we can update that assessment, or if someone becomes a family, they can complete a new assessment, so it's not set in stone once one is completed. And then we also have a current living situation assessment, which tracks the homelessness history of the household, as well as keeping the household active in the one home system. And we'll go over our inactive policy in a couple of slides. So one of the things we really want to highlight is that the one home coordinated entry system is only one avenue to housing, because we have thousands of people, I think right now about over 3,000 people on the community queue. We don't have enough resources for every single person. That's why we use the prioritization process. And so when a household has been entered into the coordinated entry system, we encourage them to continue working on other housing opportunities, whether that's getting on wait lists or applying for low-income housing, sober living, work programs, etc. Some other expectations we have for our assessing agencies is that they maintain contact with the household. So that, again, is doing that current living situation assessment, continuing to work with the household on housing applications and other case management, but also keeping their contact information updated in HMIS. So we have like a contacts tab in the HMIS system. That is what's going to be used if a household is referred to housing. So we want to always keep that information up to date. It's also important to start working on gathering vital documents, because those are required for housing applications. So that's going to be a birth certificate, a state ID, and a social security card. These can also be uploaded to HMIS in the files section, and we would highly encourage that because we know how easy it is for documents to be lost when folks are experiencing homelessness. And then we do have an inactive policy. So this is around the client engagement in one home. So to keep a household active in one home, we need current living situation assessments completed. We encourage those being done every 30 to 60 days. And then also completing new one home coordinated entry standard assessments as needed. So again, if some changes have happened for the household, or maybe it's been a few years since their last assessment, you can complete a new assessment. Our inactive policy automatically exits households after 120 days of inactivity in the one home system. So households can easily be re-enrolled and added back to the community queue if they re-engage with services. The purpose of the inactive policy is just, as mentioned, we have over 3,000 people on the community queue. If a household isn't active, we don't want to be referring them to a housing resource and making it take even more time to get someone into housing. But it's very easy to reactivate someone if they show back up.
All right, so I'm going to talk about prioritization. Unfortunately, like Katie said, we don't have enough resources to house everyone in our system. So prioritization is a necessary and also required process for coordinated entry. We use data that's collected during the coordinated entry assessment to prioritize households. The criteria we use is informed by the community who determined what vulnerability factors related to someone's experiences while homelessness, while unhoused, that put them at greater risk or make them more vulnerable while they're experiencing homelessness, and will have the hardest time of resolving their housing crisis on their own. And we continue using quantitative and qualitative data to prioritize households and refer them to housing. And that was also used in the process of identifying our prioritization factors. We do regularly review them as well for equity. And then one thing that we want to make clear is that it's dynamic, it's not a waiting list. And that what that means is that we look at how many people are on the queue every month, and we look at who meets the prioritization factors, and then we prioritize people based on how many resources we expect to get that month. So there's no stagnant place that someone is on the waiting list. It's not a waiting list, so there's no stagnant place. We really look at it month by month and who's meeting the most vulnerability factors. And then it varies by population as well, so single adults, young adults, and families. And you can find our criteria on the website, and I'm also going to go through it. So single adults, all of our prioritization for each population works a little differently. For single adults, it is, first of all, 3 or more disabling conditions that affect their ability to obtain or maintain housing. Those disabling conditions, it's types of three or more disabling conditions. And it's, we look at brain injury, developmental disability, mental health, substance use, chronic health, and physical disabilities. Then we look at systems involvement, and that's experiences of the criminal justice system or foster care. And then we look at currently fleeing domestic violence, and then we sort that by length of time homeless, from longest to shortest lengths of time homeless. What this looks like in practice is when we first refer people who meet the first 3 criteria, sort that by length of time homeless. If we've housed or referred everyone who meets the first 3 criteria, we go to the first 2 criteria, sort that by length of time homeless, and then if we happen to refer everyone and house everyone who meet those first 2, then we go to the first criteria. And then when we're determining which resource to refer people to, we look at those with 36 plus months of homelessness for permanent supportive housing, and then less than 36 months for rapid rehousing. For young adults, we look at 4 different factors, and we use a formula based off of weighted average. So first of all, it's lost housing due to violence or unhealthy relationships. Systems involvement, which includes the criminal justice and foster care, but it also includes division of youth services. And then we look at the 3 or more disabling conditions that affect their ability to maintain stable housing or obtain housing. And then length of time homeless. So each of them have like a percentage weight towards the total, and that's, to make it simple, the percentages generate a score, and then it's sorted by greatest to least. And there's specific questions that go into each of those factors. Okay, and then families, it's bucketed. So first of all, they look at all households that are fleeing domestic violence, sort that by age of the youngest child and length of time homeless. If they've referred or housed everyone who's fleeing domestic violence, then it looks at those who have experienced domestic violence, sort that by length of time homeless and age of the youngest child, then length of time homeless. And then if they've housed everyone who's fleeing and who's experienced domestic violence, they look at those with 3 or more disabling conditions that affect their ability to obtain, maintain housing, and sort that by age of the youngest child and length of time homeless. And then for PSH versus rapid rehousing referrals, households with more than 12 months of homelessness and a documented disability are prioritized for permanent supportive housing, and those with less than 12 months of literal homelessness are referred to rapid rehousing.
All right, and I'm going to talk through the referral process. So housing providers use the coordinated entry system to enter vacancies into HMIS on a weekly basis. We'll go through a little bit more details of that process later, and then coordinated entry staff make a referral to those vacancies every week. And again, that's looking at prioritization and population for who is identified for that next available resource. The referrals that we make are based on eligibility, housing needs, and preferences. Those are all the things that are captured in that coordinated entry assessment, as well as the current living situation assessment. We do make a 1-to-1 match. So what that means is that when a housing provider enters one vacancy, we are referring one person to it. We have had some housing providers request more of that, and that's something that we don't do because it's an issue around equity. We don't want to refer 5 people to one vacancy and then only one of those people gets a resource, and we might not have something that's available for those people for a while longer. And we expect people to have 2 weeks of outreach per referral, and outreaching those households at least 3 times in those 2 weeks. And then after that, if a household can't be contacted or isn't interested in the resource, or maybe they went to jail and they're going to be there for the next 6 months, they're able to deny them, we'll send a new referral the following week. So it's really a pretty quick process as far as those referrals go. The primary resources that we have available are permanent supportive housing, or PSH, permanent housing, PH, and rapid rehousing, or rapid RRH. Because some of the differences for those would be that permanent supportive housing requires chronicity, so a disabling condition and 12 or more months of homelessness, and comes with supportive services that are in-house. Permanent housing is also a permanent resource, but doesn't necessarily always require that chronicity. and doesn't always have supportive services in-house. And then rapid rehousing is going to be a shorter term intervention, usually 6 months to 1 year of rental assistance and case management, with the intention of a household being able to stabilize at the end of that and kind of live independently after they've been in that program. We also understand that sometimes a household's referred to rapid rehousing and that's not the right resource for them. And so we do have a process for applying for a transfer if someone needs a different level of intervention. And then another piece we wanted to talk through is our one home case conferencing. So we do have separate case conferencings for our subpopulations. That's going to be family, TAY or transition age youth, single adults, and Boulder case conferencing. The purpose of case conferencing is to gather updates on the households who are on the community queue, so households who've had a coordinated entry assessment and been added to the community queue, and also to better coordinate care between our service provider agencies, the coordinated entry team, and other care team staff. It also helps us have a better understanding of housing preferences, as well as barriers that a household is facing, and it helps inform the referral process. We want to be very clear that case conferencing is not used to make referrals. It is used to inform the referral process. So we're not sitting in case conferencing and deciding who gets what next resource, but we are using that data to inform the referral process every single week. And then the one home coordinated entry specialists are the one facilitating the case conferencing.
All right, I'm going to give a high-level overview of the coordinated entry workflow. So first of all, coordinate entry assessment is done with a unhoused person or family with a case manager or an outreach worker or some kind of resource navigator in the community. They're then added to the community queue. On our end, we pull a report on a monthly basis of each subpopulation, so singles, families, and transition-aged youth. And then on a weekly basis, we get vacancies. So a housing provider enters a vacancy by end of the day Monday. Our coordinate entry specialists review the vacancies on Tuesday. And then after that, in order to make the referrals, they look at the monthly report sorted by prioritization, and then they identify who's next in priority, what are their housing needs. We take into account accessibility needs as well, preferences, and eligibility. So we'll only refer people who are eligible for a project to the best of our knowledge. And then for referral, we make the referral by the end of the day Thursday that same week. Like Katie said, we do one-to-one referrals. And after the referral is made in HMIS, we also send a follow-up email to connect the care team directly with the housing provider to really start that care coordination process. And then from there, the outreach begins. So the care team and the housing provider work together to outreach the household at least 3 times in a 2-week period. And then once they're able to get in contact, they start gathering vital documents, other application materials, eligibility verifications, whatever is needed to submit the housing application. And from there, it can go to, based on the resource, either getting a voucher and moving into a specific building for permanent supportive housing or permanent housing, or getting a voucher and searching for housing in the community, or setting up rapid rehousing assistance and searching for housing in the community. And of course, with the ultimate goal of leasing people up in their new house, new home.
Awesome. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about our veteran process. So our veteran system is separate from the one home coordinated entry system. And so it's a separate coordinated entry process in HMIS. Some of the eligibility factors would be that a veteran must be VA eligible, as the resources that they have are all through the VA. Veterans who are not VA eligible will just go through the standard one home coordinated entry process. We don't have people be on both of these community queues. It's one or the other. So also if a veteran wasn't interested in receiving veteran resources, they would just go onto the one home community queue. So veterans are enrolled and assessed, so kind of similar to the rest of the process, and then they're added to the veteran by name list. They're then discussed in regional case conferencing. This is separate from the one home coordinated entry case conferencing that we already discussed earlier, and that's to discuss the veterans that are on the by name list. So that is spread up between regions, and then is facilitated by that regional facilitator. The veteran coordinated entry process does utilize the Built for Zero framework, so the veteran by name list and the coordinated entry system are one and the same for the veteran process. And if folks have more questions about that, we're happy to answer that later. We're not going as much into that in this particular presentation. And we also just want to very specifically thank our VA services here. They are very involved, they are wonderful, and specifically Lauren Lipinski, who's the VA coordinated entry specialist. She is incredible, so we just want to definitely, yes, thank her. I don't know if she's in this room or not, but so yeah, that's the veteran process. And now we're open for questions. I don't know if we have time for questions. We don't have time for questions, but if you want us to go to the next slide. Here's all of our contact information. So you're welcome to reach out to us. We can answer any questions that you have via email. And then also you can write down those questions on the note cards that are on the table and just write coordinated entry question and your email address, and then we'll get back to those questions later. Or you can find us, we'll be here.
Thanks, y'all.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Katie and Sophia. And next, I would like to introduce Housing Connector, who will be going through housing navigation.
Oh, awesome, thank you. Thank you, everyone. So excited to be here today. My name's Ramsey Ferguson. My pronouns are she, her. I'm the Community Partnerships Manager for Housing Connector, our operations in the Denver metro area. So really excited to be here with everyone today. So I want to kind of ground us a little bit before we finish this presentation and go into lunch, and just kind of talk about what's been shared thus far. The CDP team really touched on that prevention piece, right? In a sense, we're talking about this whole flow of the system. That team is working with folks to prevent them from even getting into the system. The MDHI team talked about what happens when someone unfortunately ends up in the system and has to access resources and navigate all the challenges that come with that. And now I'm going to talk about housing navigation. I'm going to ground us in what it is, why it's vital to our homelessness response system, what it looks like day to day for the folks who are doing the work, the challenges that come with it, how Housing Connector can assist. So rest assured, I will talk about my organization here in a sec. And then just provide some suggestions for how we can continue to collaborate as a community on this really challenging piece of exiting folks from the system and making sure that they stay in those permanent supportive housing solutions and not cycle back into homelessness services. So real quick, just to ground us in what housing navigation is, I feel like I'm in a room full of experts. It's actually quite intimidating, but I do want to ground us all in kind of the same understanding of what housing navigation is, and that is, it's a client-centered, housing-focused service that's really designed to provide advocates, guides, and problem solvers to our clients who are navigating this immensely challenging system. I mean, they get matched with the resource. It doesn't stop there. You know, the whole journey kind of begins once they get connected with a voucher or a subsidy, or they're able to earn their own income and kind of exit their homelessness situation. Some of the services that are involved in housing navigation, I think we all know this, right? It's identifying and securing safe and stable housing. It's providing assistance to overcome personal and systemic barriers. That's definitely been a word or phrasing that's been used often today. Providing support with property engagement, and ultimately, right, at the end of the day, they're helping folks lease up, move in, and then providing aftercare coordination, again, to make sure that folks are staying in their homes. So, as I mentioned, our navigators are serving as guides, advocates, and problem solvers. Why is housing navigation essential to this kind of whole system that we're talking about? And again, I'm in a room full of experts. I think you all know this, but I just want to say it out loud so we're all on the same page. Housing navigation streamlines and improves housing outcomes, right? It accelerates those housing placements. When folks have support in searching for housing, they're more likely to get into those housing solutions quicker than if they were trying to do it on their own. It reduces returns to homelessness, and it promotes continuity of care and reduces resource attrition. How many times have you had a client who's been matched with a resource and they just don't use it because it just feels too overwhelming? We don't have the luxury to waste those resources in the climate that we're in right now. So we need to help our clients access those resources and get connected to those housing solutions. In addition to that, it promotes equity and it humanizes the housing experience. I think I'm going to say this ad nauseum, this is a challenging thing to do, and so having someone support you and walk alongside you when you're doing that is immensely important and really just makes the whole experience so much easier. And here's just kind of a snapshot of kind of what I think about when I think about this system work. So, oops, let me go back. There we go. So CDP was kind of talking about this section right here, right? Housed, they're kind of experiencing that instability. Then we've got some, folks land in this unhoused situation. They get matched to a resource, and then they start applying for units. But then they kind of get stuck in this flow right here because that housing navigation experience is so challenging. So then they get denied because they're applying to places and not getting accepted, and they just keep cycling back through this. So I just wanted to provide this snapshot because I think it gives context to kind of what I'm framing here. Oops. All right, and then real quick, again, I'm sure there's lots of folks in this room who are doing housing navigation work, but I just want to highlight the good work that these folks are doing every day. I work and partner with a lot of housing navigators, and I'm always just immensely impressed by all the things that they're juggling at a given time. So again, what navigators are doing on a daily basis, they're building trust with clients, they're gathering documents, making sure that folks have everything they need to get housed. They're engaging in that housing search process with folks, accompanying clients to appointments, viewings, interviews, all the things. They're helping them engage with landlords. What an intimidating experience if you've never done it before, and so just really helping them navigate those professional conversations. They're coordinating services. It doesn't work in they can't work in a silo. They need to collaborate with case managers, healthcare providers, like all of these people that are wrapped around the individual that they're working with. And then they support lease signings and obviously celebrate with them when they land into their housing situation and get that stable housing that they've been longing for so long. So I just want to acknowledge the navigators in the room, the case managers who do this work. Thank you for doing it every day. I see you. We appreciate you. Yeah. All right. So I think I've talked a lot about the challenges, so let's kind of just root in those real quickly. Those are all the things that the navigators are doing with their clients on a daily basis, and they're doing it at the same time that there's a housing crisis. So not only are they having to trudge through all those challenges with their clients and walk alongside them, they're doing it when there's limited housing availability, and we know that we need more. In addition to just the lack of affordable housing that's available, many renters face an uphill battle when they are trying to apply for units. 1 in 3 people in the United States have justice involvement on their record. 29% of Americans have a credit score below 669, and 7.6 million individuals face eviction each year. Nearly 40% are children. So imagine trying to apply for a unit with all those things stacked against you. And that is where Housing Connector can come in and support in these situations. So Housing Connector acknowledges these challenges, we see what's happening in our communities, and we're here to provide a service to community partner or social service organizations who are assisting individuals navigating their housing search experience. We're a national tech-powered nonprofit that increases access to housing and stability for those most in need in our communities. Housing Connector is our services are formally launched in the Denver metro area. We also serve Seattle, Portland, Austin, Texas, Dallas, Texas, and soon to be Orlando. So what is it that Housing Connector does? Housing Connector partners with properties in our local communities and incentivizes them to lower barriers to housing for the folks that you all are serving on a day-to-day basis. So we are asking for them to reduce screening criteria during their application process. So for the folks who kind of fall into those categories that I mentioned on the previous slide, maybe they have an eviction on their record, maybe they do have justice involvement, maybe they've never rented before and they literally have no rental history. The reduced screening criteria that we partner with our properties on addresses all of those barriers that folks might have when they are trying to apply for units in the private market housing space. And I think that's something that I need to make distinctive here. Housing Connector partners with private market rentals in the community. So while we know that like more affordable housing solutions is what ultimately we need, right? We need those solutions so that folks have more options. We're really trying to leverage what currently exists and make it more accessible for folks that you all are working with. In addition to the reduced screening criteria that we provide, we also have online vacancy matching through a few of our tech tools that I'll talk about here in a second. So it really kind of tailors the housing search experience for folks and maximizes efficiency. We have client-driven search tools. So if you have folks who are, want to feel empowered in their housing search experience and have the capacity to do that, we have ways that they can do that as well. And then finally, we're really just working to create community spaces. We're trying to be a bridge between the property over here, the service provider over here, the service provider that's like, I'm really trying to build relationships with properties on my own, and I'm really just struggling on how to like engage with this landlord. Like, what tips and tricks do you all have for us? So we're also providing learning sessions for the partners that we work with so that they can feel empowered to not just have to rely on Housing Connector, but you can also do this work on your own as well. You all are doing it most of the time anyways, so we'd love to help bolster that. All right, so in terms of some of the tech solutions that Housing Connector can provide, we are formally partnered with Zillow. They provide us a centralized exclusive platform for housing search. So when you log on to a Zillow platform, anyone who's partnered with our organization can go onto that platform, filter for units that are partnered with our organization, and see what reduced screening criteria is connected to that unit in real time. So what happens is you can sit down with an individual and say, you have an eviction on your record in the last 2 years, you don't have any rental history, and maybe you have poor credit score. Great, let's pull up this property on the Zillow Housing Connector platform. I can see that they will work with all of those rental barriers that you have. This feels like a good option for you to apply to. So essentially, it's helping folks like not waste time and money applying to units that they might not qualify for to begin with. So again, we're really just trying to make things more efficient for your clients, for the navigators, and for their overall system as a whole. In addition to the Zillow platform, we have a new tech product that we just developed called the Community Hub. This is a centralized landing point for all of our navigator or case manager partners who work with us. We're very, very excited about it. Before, we just had like links over here and links over here, and it was a little challenging for folks to navigate. So this really serves as a one-stop shop for folks to interact with our system, interact with our resources, and make sure that you stay connected with our team so that you can get the support that either you need as a navigator utilizing our tools or for the clients that you're serving. So in the Community Hub, we've got automated unit matching. So again, we have the capacity for you to like sort of upfront tell us all the barriers that your client might be experiencing when trying to rent a private market rental unit. And we can then take that information and match them directly to any vacancies that currently exist in our system at a given time. So again, really just streamlining that housing search experience. We have centralized management for the case managers and navigators who are navigating our system. So again, we don't want data entry to be one-sided. We want you all to see what's on the back end as well so that you can stay organized and efficient in partnering with our organization. We've got systems so that folks can easily track financial requests or support tickets that might come through our system. I'll talk about here in a second. We're not just in the business of getting folks housed. We want to make sure that they stay there, and so we do have systems in place to support with that. And then at the end of the day, right, it's streamlined information sharing. We're really, again, just trying to make partnering with us as efficient and easy as possible for you all. All right, so as I mentioned, not just in the business of getting folks into housing, We want to make sure that they stay there. We don't want folks cycling back into our homelessness services systems. And so how we do that is Housing Connector provides a few different financial incentives that are really win-win solutions for both properties as well as residents. And we have a wonderful stability support team that helps triage tenancy issues that are coming up for folks housed through our program. So first thing I'll talk about is the limited emergency rental assistance. When someone is housed through the Housing Connector program, we do offer a limited amount of emergency rental assistance for those folks. It's a good faith kind of guarantee to the properties who are willing to partner with us to say, hey, you know, folks who are coming through the Housing Connector referral, they may run into some challenges due to unexpected things that come up in their lives that cause them to be unable to pay rent. We will provide emergency rental assistance that not only benefit you, but also benefit the resident as well to avoid being put at risk for losing their housing. We provide damage mitigation funding, so again, kind of a good faith financial incentive for our property partners to work with us, saying, hey, we understand that you might have some concerns about damages that might exceed what a security deposit could cover. We got you covered. We can take care of that. And on the back end, right, like it makes sure that folks who are living in those units, if they're running into those challenges, aren't exiting housing situations with more barriers in place than what they started with. In addition to those two financial resources, we also provide 2 years of housing stability triage is really what it should say there. My lovely team member, Stephanie, here up in the front in the green, I'm calling her out. She does wonderful work. She works on our stability team and triages all of the tenancy issues that are coming through. We work really closely with properties to say, hey, let us know ahead of time when there are challenges coming up so that we can, you know, loop in that person's case manager, get them the support that they need, and make sure that they're staying in their unit long term. So thank you, Stephanie, for the work that you do every day. Yeah. And then finally, kind of part of the work that Stephanie's doing as well is eviction mitigation. So our stability team does work with properties that, you know, if someone does unfortunately get to the situation where they need to exit their housing, depending on what the circumstances are, we are working with properties to sort of avoid folks landing with evictions on their record so that, you know, right, thus making it further challenging for them to get into another unit. So we are providing that service as well. And then at the end of the day, we're really serving as a single point of contact for properties. And again, this just makes communication and, yeah, I think continuity of care just like a little bit easier for the folks that are getting housed in our property partners units. Oftentimes, you know, a property might have so many people housed in their building that are connected to services, and they just don't have a finessed way of knowing like who that individual is connected with. That's not how their systems are built, that's not how they're structured. And so we take that burden off of them and say, no problem, just if there's something that is coming up with one of the folks who was referred through Housing Connector, let our team know so that we can loop in their case manager to provide them that support. So again, we're really trying to loop properties into the fold to be a part of the solution of keeping folks in their housing. All right, so I'm gonna close out here and I was gonna try to finish fast for questions, but I failed. Just a quick little snapshot of our impact across all of our different markets. Housing Connectors helped house over 9,400 individuals. We're partnered with 2,700 properties, which I didn't pull the data, but how many like actual buildings that accounts to is just massive. We're partnered with over 300 community partners who have assisted in partnership with us, collaboration with us in facilitating 88% of the folks who have come through our program have completed their first year lease term, and 77% have completed their second year in that same unit. 66% of individuals who come through Housing Connectors program are individuals of color. And then just to close this out, I'm gonna echo what the commissioner was saying earlier. That really resonated with me and is something that I've been thinking about. This work doesn't happen in silos. Housing Connector is just one resource. We know that you all are doing housing navigation and working with landlords and properties within your own systems every day. So We want to continue you to encourage, or we want to encourage you to continue collaborating with your peers, collaborating with your clients, other organizations across communities. I recommend sharing tools, sharing databases. That's how we get access to folks who are looking for support in this work. Create those navigator peer networks. They're amazing. I've been to plenty of them. I guess I'll shout out Jeffco's navigator peer network. They do a fantastic job. Go to those ongoing learning sessions, attend those property engagement events. We're only successful if we do this work together, and so really just appreciate you all being here today. In terms of getting connected with our team, like I said, I'm Ramsey. I manage all of our partnerships with nonprofit organizations and social service providers that we work with. So if you are not already connected to Housing Connector, please feel free to reach out to me. I've also included our managing director's information. Kelsey, she's up here in the front. So please feel free to reach out to her as well. You can also visit our website that has all the information about how to get connected with us, and just a little bit more about the work that we do. We are also going to be doing a session in the afternoon. So it's more of like a technical assistance session. So if you want to learn more about being a partner, want to dig into the partnership that you already have, or just have like one-on-one questions about how to work with properties, please come and join us in that session. We'd love to see you. And thank you so much.
Thank you to all of our panelists today, and I just want to make a correction. I misspoke. It was Katie and Megan on the One Home team earlier, so thank you guys both for that presentation. So we are going to gather for lunch. We're going to let everybody back in, and I'll give you guys instructions. So if you can just hang tight for a minute. But if you have any questions for any of the panelists today, please feel free to write them down, and we will get them to the appropriate people to get answered. So we are going to kick off the session, and I am honored to introduce Sophia Vigil, who is the MDHI Regional Coordination Manager, and Sophia will be leading the regional coordination discussion.
Hi everyone, good afternoon. As Kyla just mentioned, my name is Sophia Vigil and I am the Regional Coordination Manager here at Metro Denver Homeless Initiative. And my role really entails two core components, and that is one, the oversight of our coordinated entry system, which you heard from two of my amazing team members earlier today. And then the other part of the work that I do is the implementation of the Built for Zero framework to really guide our regional collaboration efforts. And so this afternoon, I'm going to be giving like a brief 10-minute presentation overview of regional coordination across our 7 counties, plus the city of Aurora and the Tri-Cities to make up our 9 subregions. And then we'll move into a 45-minute panel discussion with representatives from each of those 9 subregions. And the hope for this panel is really to align us all and have a shared goal of really having a cohesive homeless response system that is easy to navigate and simple for all of our people experiencing homelessness to navigate, as well as you all who are working in the system being able to navigate. And my hope for this afternoon is that these systems don't feel as much like a burden or a weight or really complex, but start to feel like support for you all and for the people experiencing homelessness. So we're gonna go ahead and get started by grounding ourselves in some of the challenges that you all may face every day, or anyone here who has worked in the housing and homelessness sector has faced. And so we're going to do a little exercise. You'll raise your hand if one of these statements resonates with you. Again, this could be in your current role today. It could be maybe when you started out as a case manager or outreach worker. And so you'll just raise your hand if you agree with any of these statements or they resonate with you. And that first one is, so raise your hand if you've supported someone who moves between counties, moves between cities, or programs. I can raise my hand too, yeah. And then Thank you. Second one is raise your hand if you've felt the frustration of working in silos and or the relief of when someone else picks up the other end of the rope that you've thrown out for help. Yep, me too. And last one, raise your hand if you've thought to yourself, why is getting someone into housing so damn hard? Yeah, me too. If you were to look around while I was asking all those questions, you'll see that a majority, almost everyone, had their hand raised for one, if not all of those statements, and that's not a coincidence. That's truly a reflection of how complex the systems are that we're navigating, and that it doesn't matter where you're at in the region or what your role is, we're navigating some complex situations. And so that complexity is why it's so important for us to come together to have regional collaboration. And so when systems look different from one place to another, or one part of the region has solved something or has a big strength that another part of the region does not have, that's when we do need to come together to align our efforts, build off each other's strengths, and truly close the gaps that exist across our systems, because I'd be naive to say that our system is perfect and we have no gaps. We do. And so at MDHI, our role is to truly help make those connections stronger, so that no matter who walks through your door or who you're encountering as you're working with people experiencing homelessness, that they know where to go, you know where to go, and you know who you can contact. And so we always talk about the homeless response system as one system. But in the homeless response system, there's so many different levels to it that we're navigating, from your local agency policies, procedures, standards. Maybe you're entering into 2 databases, you have quality assurance stuff that you have to do, all the way up to the federal government, who our state and federal partners set a lot of policy around the work that we can do. They provide a lot of funding for our programs. And then you're also looking at the regional, why we're here today, bringing together all of these communities. So this afternoon, we're really focused on like regional and down. So the stuff we have a little bit more influence and a little more power over to coordinate around. And so that's what we mean when the homeless response system, but the homeless response system does not operate in its silo. The homeless response system is truly connected to so many different sectors and so many other systems out there, and this is just naming a few. So not only are we navigating our own housing programs and shelters, outreach, all of that, we're also navigating involvement across the criminal justice system, but behavioral health care, physical health care, human services. There's so many other systems. So when we say homeless response system, we're talking about navigating between all of these different levels that you'll see, along with working alongside all of these other systems that we know impact homelessness. And so what does coordination look like in action? It looks like streamlining the homeless response system to ensure that people can get connected to housing in a quick and safe manner, and this is what we're working towards. It looks like data-driven decision-making, so I know HMIS is a mundane, tedious task, but the data that you all are entering is truly being used to inform the decisions that we are making to improve the system. So HMIS is very important. If you want to sign up, we're happy to talk more about it. And then it also allows us to know every person experiencing homelessness by name, so it allows our system to be led by dignity. So rather than having one system that people have to fit into or conform to, we're able to create a system that can meet the unique needs of everyone. It also looks like expanding and diversifying the decision-making table. There isn't this magical, powerful 4 people at the top making decisions. It's truly everyone in this room. It's elevating lived experience. It's bringing in culturally responsive organizations, and it's bringing in you all to the decisions that are being made to improve our system. And it really is shared accountability, because no one single organization, one single entity, person, no one can solve homelessness on their own, and so we must have this shared accountability across our region, state, and nation, that we all are responsible for solving homelessness, and we can only do it together. And what guides us and what MDHI has set of our shared aim for our entire region is up on the screen right now, and I'll just give a quick summary of what it is. So MDHI and its partners, which is you all, have committed to knowing every person experiencing homelessness by name. So every single adult, every veteran, family, young adult member will be known by name by the end of 2027. And we will have achieved this state of functional zero, so where homelessness is very brief for veterans, and we didn't stop there. We'll achieve functional zero in 4 other sub-regions for another subpopulation. So maybe in Douglas County, that's families, or Adams County, that's young adults. But we strive to achieve functional zero in one of those regions. And this language, functional zero, and by name quality data really comes from the Built for Zero framework, which is the framework that we lean on to enhance our coordination. It's not a separate initiative that we're doing, but it's the framework that we're implementing in order to better coordinate all of our systems. And so before we go into the panel, I just wanted to emphasize something that I hope you all know already, but the importance of each one of your roles in regional coordination. You're the person that people trust. You're often the singular support system that someone may have as they're navigating all of these systems. You connect the dots in real time. So back to that slide that was looking at all the levels, all the different systems that we're navigating, you're helping figure that out. And your work also helps identify and fix system gaps because you're working in it day to day. So that feedback that you can give us as we're working to coordinate the system is very, very important, and we're hoping to elevate and create more space where your feedback can be heard and inform the decisions that are happening at the system level. And so that's my quick summary of regional coordination from MDHI's perspective, and now we'll move into the panel. So I'd like to welcome up to the stage 9 representatives from each of our subregions who are here to answer some questions around regional coordination and show us in real time of what collaboration looks like. So I'll welcome everyone to the stage. Beautiful, and we'll start briefly. We have a few questions. The first question is going to be for everyone, so as you're answering the first question, just state your name, your role, and which subregion you represent. And so the first question is, where should frontline staff start when connecting someone to services in your county or city? Or what's one common misconception about accessing resources in your area?
Hello everyone, my name is Jessica Cox. I am the Tri-Cities Homeless Service Coordinator. So I work in the Tri-Cities sub-region, which is Littleton, Englewood, and Sheridan. The first place I would refer someone is to Change the Trend. So Change the Trend is a network that's very unique to our region, and it is a coalition of providers and nonprofits who are all working towards the same mission. So you really see providers from all areas, from the cities, from nonprofits, the housing authorities, and it's really a great way to know the resources in our region. Another spot is the Arapahoe County has a resource guide that's updated annually, so it's very up to date in the resources that are in the county level.
Hi everyone, I'm Lizzie Loomis. I'm with Arapahoe County. I am the Division Manager over Community Development, Housing, and Homeless Services. So to respond to your question, Sophia, first I would say you would have to listen to what the needs of the individual are. Also, think what time of year. Are we in cold weather season? Is it the summer? Where's the person trying to go? You do not want to refer an individual to a service or a place that they have to transport themselves, walk, have complications, unless that is exactly where their end goal is. So I would say with Arapahoe County, once you listen, educate yourself on what they're trying to do, send them in the direction, or you can give them options and explain what may be available, what they're trying to accomplish. But my biggest thing is my navigation team. I have 3 housing navigators right on the 3rd floor of APZ. We're at fixed locations. If a person cannot get to a physical location, virtual options are available. If not, they don't meet the time frames, let me know what you're trying to find and let's get you to that place and get your goals accomplished.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Carrie Rennick. I am the Regional Homeless Coordinator for Jefferson County. I would recommend going to headinghomejeffco.org.com.
Let's check.
Cool. Headinghomejeffco.com. I'm going confidently on that one. So it is a hub of contacts, community resources. We update it with severe and extreme weather response. And so it also includes a list of our municipal and county navigators, their contact information. And so a plethora of information on headinghomejeffco.com.
Hi, my name is Ruhani Sensoya, and I'm the Homelessness Systems Coordinator for Adams County. One misconception about resources in Adams County is that the county has control over resources available in the cities, or that the county serves as a one-stop shop for resources for residents that live in any of the cities in the county. In reality, cities in Colorado operate on home rule, and resources in Adams County are mostly for residents that live in unincorporated areas. The best way to connect an Adams County resident to resources is to ask where the person sleeps on most nights, and then respectively connect them to one of the 7 homelessness navigation teams in the county. And if you're a member of one of those navigation teams, I would recommend that you join our bi-weekly sheltering and outreach coordination meetings that are facilitated by the county, which is one role for the county, which is to pool resources and coordinate across the region.
Good afternoon. My name is Jeff Kositsky. I am a Deputy Director at Denver's Department of Housing Stability. Unless you are lucky enough to encounter one of our excellent outreach workers, of which we don't have enough, the best way to access services in Denver is through our shelter system, and the best way to find information about our shelter system is just search Find Shelter Denver. All the information about hours, how to get into the shelter, including cold weather shelter, is available on that website if you do that search. And one of the misconceptions is that Denver has a ton of non-congregate shelter available for folks to get their own units. And we do have a really great system of non-congregate shelters available, but there are very few open, 15 to 20 on any given week. The only way to access those are through very specific programs that are set up. So folks just kind of looking for shelter are not going to get non-congregate shelter at Denver. They'll need to go to our congregate shelter system and access services that way.
All right, hey all, Emma Knight. My pronouns are they, them. I am the manager of homeless programs for the city of Aurora. And first I want to echo what Lizzie said. Absolutely talk to people first, ask them what they actually want, and then give the appropriate referral from there. But I would say in Aurora, the primary place to go first and foremost is the Aurora Day Resource Center that's on the Anschutz campus, and you can get up there through the bus line on Colfax. So it's pretty easy to get to, but that's what we have right now. I will say we're very excited to, by the end of the year, have our homeless navigation campus open, so that is where I'll be referring folks in the future. So that's going to be sometime by the end of the year, and we'll have 3 times as many spaces available for folks, maybe more than that. I don't know. Don't quote me on that, please. But it's going to just be way more services available and all in one place is really what we're trying to aim for there.
Hi everyone, good afternoon. My name is Delaney Coe and I'm the Deputy Director at Almost Home, she, her. And in Broomfield County, Refuge Cafe is a wonderful first stop for services or connection. They're more than a day resource center. They're a community, they're a place of belonging, and can really form a great bridge for relationship building to other kinds of resources in the region. Really, Broomfield is a highly connected area, and the Refuge serves as kind of a hub where services like Almost Home, my organization, can set up shop and provide other kinds of resources out of. Almost Home is also a great resource, just a phone call away, and we really try to set up where people are, whether that's the Refuge or the Broomfield Library or DHS. And last but not least, Broomfield Fish is another incredible family resource center that is a wonderful resource for food in particular. They have a self-shop model where people can go pick out the food that they need, and it's also a great place to get connected further. Again, the By Name List group really meets regularly in Broomfield and can help get people to where they need to go pretty easily.
Hello, I'm Tiffany Marcito. I supervise our homeless outreach team in Douglas County called HEART. We are the resource navigators for Douglas County, so we would be the main point of contact. And our team, like the majority of everyone has said, sit down with the person, assess their needs, vulnerabilities, try not to add an increased barrier to their situation. Douglas County is huge, so we try not to add the barrier of transportation, really try to connect them with agencies that can walk alongside them in their journey to ultimately end their homelessness situation. So I would say if anybody comes across an individual down in Douglas County, we could be your main point of contact, and then we can connect the individual from there with resources to help them.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Heidi Grove, and welcome to our backyard. I'm with Boulder County Housing Department, and I would say we have multiple entry pathways, one through street outreach. We have a very robust street outreach system here in Boulder County that is not just Boulder proper. I know a lot of people think that Boulder County and Boulder proper are one and the same. We're not. We do have outreach in Longmont. We have outreach in Nederland. We also have the housing helpline, which you can find online. And then we also have local coordinated entry. So there's multiple pathways to access resources. Our nonprofits also release a monthly updated resource guide. If you want to get on that listserv, where's Trevor? Email him. As we send it out every month. And they can be municipality specific or just county across the board wide. One of the biggest misconceptions I think that we hear is that coordinated entry is the only pathway to accessing services, and that is not true. We have lots of folks that don't engage with the system unless it's through street outreach, and it takes time to build those relationships. So that's what I have.
Beautiful. Thank you all. The next question is around collaboration across the counties and municipalities. So we will hear from Emma, Delaney, Carrie, and Jessica. Can you share an example of a time when regional collaboration helped house someone?
I can start, sure. Well, the good news is in Broomfield, the success stories have been like rolling in lately. So there have been a few to choose from, but for today, I'm thinking of a situation that couldn't have happened without regional collaboration. And that really has to rewind back 3-4 years ago to around the COVID-19 pandemic when Adams County, Broomfield County, Almost Home, and other Broomfield providers really joined forces to bring together our disparate severe weather activation programs into a more directly north metro regional approach, which really was the first step to taking those emergency services from the open door that they should be in Broomfield and that has existed because of these dedicated nonprofits over the years, but really extending that into an open hallway with other doors that people can open up after they've entered in through that emergency crisis system. And from there, fast forward to now, we've been able to extend out statewide resources, other kinds of coordinated entry resources like rapid rehousing, by allocating that to Broomfield as well, and really expanding some of those best practices that we've been doing just next door. So through the regional coordination, we were able to bring rapid rehousing to the by name list. An individual was selected immediately who had been living in Broomfield for years, working on housing stability and running into obstacles along the way, whether that's just being in a competitive market, employment, starting to really get discouraged and needing that one extra push of support for him to get to the other side. And so rapid rehousing was able to come in, work with that person in a matter of days to get approved to an apartment, moved in by the end of the month, and really now able to focus in on that employment and other stability pieces. But none of that would have been possible, and the ability to keep that person in his community too, in Broomfield. In the past, folks would have to go to our neighbors in Boulder, Denver, to get that higher level of support that's needed. And by really working regionally and making sure that we're bringing these connections, we were able to open new avenues that weren't available before.
All right. So my team, my outreach team is great, and they work with a lot of different partners, of course, as most outreach teams have to, especially in the Denver metro area. We have so many borders and cities, and as you know, homelessness doesn't see borders, so we're really having to collaborate with so many people. I'll shout out a few that I know my team works with a lot, and then I'll go into a more specific example. So my team works a lot with the Arapahoe County Harm Reduction Team. They go out and do outreach together all the time and provide that harm reduction to folks who really need that. They also work pretty frequently with DSOC and the Centennial outreach teams. Aurora borders a lot of different places, so we do end up having to coordinate. The 225 in Parker is an area I specifically think of a lot, where we have a lot of coordination, having to work with many different jurisdictions. We actually call that area the Bermuda Triangle because there's like 8 jurisdictions in one area right there. So my team has to work really closely with other agencies in order to get those folks help as much as possible. And then they've been working with the court systems a lot, especially the Arapahoe County court system, to really go and advocate for their clients to, they're working towards housing, so let's get this, whatever they're here in court for, let's work with that and move them out of that so that it's not just another barrier on top of what they're already dealing with into getting housing. So those are just a few of the really key partnerships we've been working with a lot lately. But one I want to call out, we got state housing vouchers, or SHVs, from obviously the state recently, and we've been getting a lot of folks matched and working through that. And as you know, when you're doing outreach and you're working with those folks who are literally homeless, they're on the streets, they can be really hard to find. So if you're trying to get them into housing, just having them in a consistent place is really, really helpful. So we've worked a lot with SWAP, the Severe Weather Action, with Delaney's group here. And they got a few of our clients into shelters during severe weather, which made it easier for us to find them on a more regular basis and just get them into housing. And within that as well, working with the Aurora Housing Authority. I know that's not regional, but they're great, so I'm giving them a shout out. They're doing the case management for our folks, and we've gotten a few folks housed, and we're really proud of, well, I'm really proud of my team and how much work they're doing to get people housed. And if you sat in on their workshop earlier, please give them a shout out. I heard a lot of good things, and no one heckled them. I don't know why, but anyway.
So Jeffco, if you're familiar with the territory, we go from the core of Colfax all the way into the mountains, Evergreen, Conifer, as far north bordering to Boulder, all the way down to Littleton. So we have a tiny space to cover. And within that, we have a ton of cities, municipalities, unincorporated spaces, and then 2 of our cities straddle 2 different counties. It is a ball of fun. And so in my role as the regional coordinator, I bring together all of our leadership from the cities and the county to sit down and play nice in the sandbox, is what I like to say. But to do that, we know that there are so many layers to actually getting a person housed. And so the approach that we are taking is to kind of parse out where the barriers might be and then kind of hone in and approach those decisions with the appropriate people that can move the needle. So in Heading Home, we have structured it so that there are kind of 3 tiers. So we have our Heading Home membership, who could be anybody that has an interest or working within homeless services. And those are tied to specific work groups that are helping us achieve our 15-year housing strategic plan for JeffCo. So those are the doers, the movers, the shakers, right? That can tell us, here are the barriers that my client is facing. If we can't problem solve in those monthly meetings with case conferencing and whatnot, they get kind of elevated to our next tier, which is our interagency advisory board. So that is made up of our organizational leaders and decision makers, that if there is an issue like a practice in an organization that's preventing somebody from moving along the housing continuum, then we can troubleshoot that and problem solve and see how our service providers can interact better together so we are not in a continued silo. If that level can't achieve moving the needle, then we elevate it to our governance committee, which is our city managers, our county manager, and myself. And that group of individuals are making the funding decisions, the strategic planning sessions, helping us navigate the political landscape to ensure that our goals are being met. So kind of this tiered system helps ensure that there is a through line to communication and that we aren't getting stuck in any particular areas. So I don't have a specific example, rather our overall approach to how we're helping individuals get housed.
So for the Tri-Cities region, one really impactful example of this, I think, is our severe weather shelter network and our response to severe weather sheltering this last season. So it was brought to our attention very early on that severe weather shelter was closing. In the Tri-Cities region, they were responsible for housing during severe weather, and it took everyone from the county in the 3 cities coming together to kind of restructure the program so that we could get something in place and that we could make sure that there was severe weather sheltering for the upcoming season. So it started at the county level where we could restructure with HAP Force a way that we would be able to provide sheltering for families and other services that weren't previously supported, and then the help with the 3 cities. So with the city of Littleton, city of Englewood, city of Sheridan, all kind of combined together with HAP Force to make sure that we were providing severe weather sheltering for this season. And this past season, we were able to provide severe weather sheltering for 3 times as many clients. So it was very successful, and it wouldn't have been able to be done without the collaboration at the counties and the 3 city levels and the nonprofit service provider level.
Beautiful. Thank you all. Let's talk a little bit about overcoming housing barriers. We'll hear from Heidi, Lizzie, and Ruhani. When someone encounters roadblocks like lack of ID, income gaps, or any really roadblock or barrier you can think of, who can they turn to for help? And what's an example of a creative solution that has worked?
I can start.
Please be my guest.
All right. So, I mean, the reality is navigating housing is super complicated. So we've spent a lot of time educating all of our nonprofit partners, whether it's boots on the ground, street outreach workers, to case managers, to even leadership on how to navigate the housing system, which knowledge is power. And the other thing that we did was we really shifted our entire outreach strategy to a housing-focused outreach strategy. We've done that for the last 4 years. If you want to know what that looks like, Zach in the back from the state has a recording from the state convening last summer that explains what housing-focused outreach is. So what we've done is we've shifted the assessment and understanding what those barriers are really to our outreach. The first touch point, assessing those barriers, whether as someone who's a registered sex offender, can they be deregistered? Our outreach workers are responsible for helping folks get doc ready, state IDs, social security cards, at minimum. Birth certificates are questionable and only required for state housing vouchers, mostly. And really just kind of assessing what those challenges are. That said, we do have some real barriers systemically in meth convictions specifically. And I think that that is a word that we don't like to say in this space, but we need to start saying it. We need to start really looking at where those barriers are. How do we address that? We're assessing if there's a way that we could partner with our public health department to do a pilot study to see if we can build meth-resistant units and really kind of remove those barriers. But when it comes to things like doc readiness, income, all of those things, we found avenues, and we know we need to continue to assess where those other barriers are. Did I answer your question, Sophia?
Yes.
Okay.
When somebody needs to come up with solutions for roadblocks, it can be helpful to discuss those roadblocks in one of our case conferencing teams. Adams County has a number of groups who do case conferencing that are population or program specific. For example, we have a group for veterans and another group for Olmstead voucher recipients. And we are also starting to case conference in our sheltering and outreach coordination group, where any attendee of the sheltering and outreach coordination meetings can add somebody to our case conferencing roster. There are at least 3 benefits to discussing roadblocks in case conferencing. First of all, somebody in the group might just have a potential solution or idea that you might not have already thought of. For example, when it comes to securing vital documents, something like a photo ID, it can come with a lot of additional barriers, especially for people who are out of state. Recently, one of our navigators had success after securing a number of other verifying documents. One document that was missing was a photo ID, and they were actually able to use a Clarity ID from HMIS to secure a state ID from the DMV, which might not work in every case, but certainly worth a try. The second benefit to discussing roadblocks and case conferencing is that the group might have additional resources. For example, in our veteran case conferencing group, we had flex funds that were awarded by Community Solutions specifically for veterans. And in one case, we had a veteran who was getting income through a food delivery app, and they were also renting a car to be able to work that job. But the cost of those monthly rental payments for the car were so high that they were essentially breaking even, and they were unable to save money for things like housing. So what we did was we used flex funds to help pay for a down payment for the car. And this allowed, first of all, the monthly payments for the car reduced significantly. So the veteran was able to save up money, and then within 3 months, they secured housing and were stably housed. The third benefit of discussing roadblocks and case conferencing is that we can collect data on solutions that work and solutions that don't. And with the Veteran Flex Fund specifically, we saw that over half of the households that received Flex Funds were able to maintain stable housing. And we actually used that data to make a proposal to have permanent Flex Funds in Adams County. And that proposal was successful, and now we do have our own Flex Fund program that is funded by general funds. That's so exciting. Okay.
Sorry, guys. So to answer your question, Sophia, housing barriers, let's look at it. I could see a sea full of people out here checking their phones, computers. I'm probably going to admit that every one of you has checked on a client today, on a project, a funding source, something working down the pipeline. The end result is always to get the individual housed, not for the short term, but for the long term. So looking at the barriers on a case-by-case basis, no one is ever identical, no one is ever the same. It's how you approach the situation and the partners that you bring into your sandbox. I'm sorry, I love that term. I work with 4 housing authorities, multiple jurisdictions, wonderful people sitting in this row. We have people that come from other counties, other states. We're seeing a high turnover of people migrating to Colorado for opportunities. But it is sitting down, looking at the housing barriers. The biggest one is, how do we create more housing? How do we create more housing in the short term and the long term to identify the gaps of financial funding, gap financing, LIHTC properties. It's bringing everyone together to address the housing barriers and a long-term effect to help our clients in need.
Wonderful. Thank you all. Next, we'll hear about coordination with other systems. So I mentioned we're operating in this ecosystem, not a silo. We're connected to many other systems. And we'll hear from Tiffany, Heidi, and Delaney for this one. What partnerships exist in your community to help clients access behavioral health, healthcare, employment, or any of the other systems? Or how is it connected to, criminal justice systems, hospital, healthcare, just general system coordination?
I'll go for it again. In Broomfield, we do have, the online platform Unite Us is one that we've adopted, and that's been a great resource for being able to send referrals across systems like criminal justice, healthcare. Oftentimes that's kind of a good starting point for that. But what I really wanted to use today to underscore has been the importance of in-person regular collaboration in the city and county of Broomfield. We do this through a once a month 2-hour meeting that we call Broomfield Housing Solutions Forum. It's a cross-sector space where not only housing service providers, but nonprofits that are across the sector, business community, faith community, other community members who've experienced housing instability and have in-depth knowledge of the system and what needs to change are all coming together in person at Broomfield Fish on a regular basis to discuss systems level solutions and work towards shared objectives that are all aimed to increasing the resources in our system and the ease of access of those resources. And you really can't understate the difference it makes to know people by name, by face, to know exactly the person that you can reach out to when you're like, okay, this weird situation has come up with the client, they need these 3 different areas to be addressed, and I don't even know where to start problem solving. And of course, using this space to regularly share what resources exist and kind of the current state, so we can be collaborating around those changes and the gaps that we know exist. And as we're talking about cross-sector collaboration, it feels like an important time to also highlight the necessity of partnering with our community that has most been affected by the housing crisis as like an equal partner in all of this. And I want to highlight that Broomfield in the last few months has been doing this through taking our homeless solutions team meeting, which is another monthly meeting, but quarterly, shifting that purpose to being an in-person listening session with community members who either currently are experiencing housing instability or have in the past. And this has really been our fuel for a lot of the solutions that we are working collaboratively on, is what's come out of these discussions, talking frankly about what has it been like for you when you've tried to access resources, what could have been better, what needs to change, and what's missing, and having very regular touch points for us as a system to be collaborating on how people move through it, coming from their lens.
So Douglas County has a deep-rooted collaboration history, even outside of homelessness. So when we have programs that have successfully existed in the past, we like to continue that and model it and try to see if that same system would work with different populations. So prior to our co-responder homeless outreach team, there is our co-responder mental health team. And so they have been very successful in connecting with individuals in the community who are in crisis mode. And then our county leadership found that a lot of the individuals that they were assisting were also homeless. So we collaborate with that mental health team, we collaborate with our care compact in the county, and we have developed success in our veteran by name list. We actually are one of the counties that have achieved functional zero for vets. So we wanted to mimic that same process for families and single adults and the young adults as well. So we actually have weekly case conferencing meetings, and each week is for a different population. But if we have time available, we'll discuss any cases that need conferenced in like a crisis, if somebody's in like a crisis. So we have definitely found success in that because we don't want to duplicate work in between with our nonprofits, with our team, with other organizations that are trying to help the same individual. So we feel like we've had a lot of success in these weekly case conferencing sessions, so we can make sure it frees up time for another individual to work on something else, divvying out different pieces so we can help this same person get out of their homelessness situation. So.
Thanks. For those who know me, not Boulder County folks, for those who, well, okay, ignore, Boulder County folks, ignore what I'm about to say. We always talk about how many times have you guys heard homelessness is a product of failed systems upstream? Anybody? Raise your hands. How many times are we talking to other systems about how to shift and make improvements so that we're not having this constant catch at the very end? The reality is the homeless system is the last safety net for folks. That is a reality. And so we work in Boulder County across multiple systems. We've had some successes and some challenges. I think our deepest success is really with the justice system. We really are struggling with the healthcare system. And I think the reality is there's no incentive. There's no incentive for other systems to invest in what they know is the most robust cost savings, which is housing. And so we as a system in this room need to start having deeper conversations with these other systems that actually puts their cost savings into housing and into the supportive services, as opposed to, hey, we had a $900,000 cost savings last year, we're gonna buy a new x-ray machine, or we're gonna buy a new SWAT car. We need to start holding those that we work with that see the impact of housing on those accountable for those cost savings. And I'm sorry, that is like super passionate, something on me. But to going back to how we work with other systems, a big part of that is the education piece, understanding and navigating the homeless system and helping them understand housing. But I do encourage, if I were to have a call to action, it's let's start having these deeper conversations, because the reality is we are about to enter the Sahara Desert when it comes to funding, and we need to start thinking smarter, not harder, and creatively. So
we need to work together.
Yes.
Beautiful. Thank you all. The next part is around data and coordination and seeing the bigger picture, and we'll hear from Jeff, Ruhani, and Emma for this one. How does data, like HMIS, impact decision-making at the local level, and how does it help improve coordination?
So the homelessness reduction and poverty reduction work being done in Adams County is mostly, if not completely, guided by data. Adams County has a memorandum of understanding, an MOU, across 10 jurisdictions to align resources, coordinate services, and align investment strategies in the county. We also have data sharing agreements where We have a mutual agreement to share data, very specific client-level data on things like demographic information, enrollment history, program outcomes, and this data is then housed in a shared data warehouse. It is de-identified, aggregated, and then funneled into a data transparency portal run by the data team in the Adams County Department of Community Safety and Wellbeing. And having this data from across the county allows us to have a comprehensive view on homelessness to better make decisions for what policies and programs should look like. At the local level, one thing that we saw was that in Adams County, one of the top contributors to homelessness was violence or abuse in the home, which was surprising for us and for others looking at the data. But from there, we were able to make a proposal to have more services in the county and programs for domestic violence intervention. And as a result, the county actually allocated $4.6 million towards programs and services aimed at preventing domestic violence and other domestic violence programs in general. And this example is just one that goes to show that HMIS isn't just a database. It is a resource and a tool that can be used to make impactful decisions that can make a difference based on what we're seeing in the community.
I guess it's me.
Not me.
So I think we all know solving homelessness needs to happen one person at a time. It needs to happen through developing relationships with folks. Those relationships should be rooted in empathy and healing and in love. But that doesn't have to be mutually exclusive to the use of data for how we do our work, not just from a large-scale perspective or a resource allocation perspective, but also day-to-day. So it's important that folks who are working on the front line really understand what's happening in their communities in terms of inflow into homelessness, how many people are self-resolving, how many people are stuck in our system, how many people are chronically homeless. But it's also important in understanding what resources are available right now. In that moment, because although sometimes thinking about data feels a little bit inhumane maybe, I think it's really inhumane to tell people that housing is waiting for them just to get on this waiting list and wait. I think it's important that people experiencing homelessness have this data and understand so that they can make decisions about whether they should be focusing on a diversion intervention or focusing on a family reunification, because we all know there's just not enough housing for folks. And I would say that when our case managers don't have that data and don't have that understanding, they're doing a real disservice, not of their own, it's not because of mistakes they have made, it's because we haven't shared with them or helped people understand what's happening in each of our communities. I also think it's incredibly important, obviously, for resource allocation and for decision making, because we don't have enough, and it doesn't feel like we're ever going to have enough. So we have to be really smart about how we use what we have on a daily basis and how we plan our budgets moving forward. So, for example, there's a lot of people, I hear a lot of folks say, rapid rehousing doesn't work. It especially doesn't work for adults. We shouldn't be doing rapid rehousing. Well, for many of us, Denver maybe especially, it's really the only tool that we have at scale available to us. And if you look at the data, we did a data poll from the HMIS system and saw that in a 5-year period, 82% of the people in rapid rehousing never returned back into the homelessness response system anywhere in the Denver metro region. And I understand, having done this work for a while, you remember, a lot of times you remember the heartbreaks, and you remember the 18% of the people who were not successful and the trauma that caused for them. and the trauma that that causes for those of us who are doing this work with folks every day. But that's not like fact. And it's really important, especially nowadays, that we operate, using facts. So I think data is an incredibly important piece of this work, but it needs to be used throughout the system, especially on the front lines, and especially being shared with our neighbors who are experiencing homelessness, all the way up to people who are directors of finance and mayors, so that they understand the best way to use what we have available to us to solve the problem.
So when I was on the front line, first as a case manager or working in a shelter, I did not understand how important data was. I thought, this feels like a waste of my time. I shouldn't be sitting here entering data when I could be out there working with someone and helping them get that important thing done right now. But now that I'm no longer doing that, and my eyes have been a little bit opened, just because I have to look at the data all the time and make a case for these kinds of things. I've seen that data is really what makes such a difference in being able to talk to our elected officials and say, here's what we really need, here's the barrier we're seeing, and here's the actual data we've pulled to show that this is what we need. And without you all on the front lines providing that data and collecting that and putting it in a timely manner, we can't make that case. So you all putting that data in is so extremely important. It's just as big a part of the job as actually being out there. I shouldn't say just as big a part of the job. It is another very large part of the job, though, for doing that direct service, is being able to collect that data so that we're here to support you in getting those barriers taken care of. For example, we had with our council, or our city council, I had to make a case to them about why we should extend some of our shelter to be a longer term stay for folks. And having that direct data of saying, well, we're not getting folks housed with only having a month of them being in shelter. So they were then able to say, okay, give them a longer stay then, if that's what you need, if that's what it's gonna take for them to move into housing or something in between housing and a shelter, then great, let's extend that. Another example is just that in our Built for Zero case conferencing, we were seeing a lot of barriers for folks. We were seeing the same people on our by name list over and over again, and we couldn't figure out, okay, how do we get in touch with them? We can't find them, and that's why they're not moving off the list. They're so hard to find. So we ended up using some of our Community Solutions Flex Fund to get folks into hotels so that we could easily find them whenever we needed to. That's just one example. We've also prioritized veterans as well because they weren't getting the case management they needed between getting to the VA and getting in with that VASH case manager. So they needed that additional case management. And we saw that through the data on our by name list, which we wouldn't maybe have seen otherwise, like why those folks were falling through the cracks. So I guess really, if you take one message from this, that data you're collecting leads to direct action and direct change.
Beautiful, thank you all. And then last question everyone is going to answer is just, if people here today were to walk away with one key action, resource, tidbit of information, what would it be?
I think I have to echo what you were saying, Sophia, that this work really can't be done in silos. It takes partnerships with other agencies, with cities, with everyone. So I think really just having those conversations, having conversations with other regions, having as many conversations as you can, because I think that's where big ideas come from. And I just think that it really does take that collaboration across the board.
So one of the big pieces of information I'll leave as a takeaway is everybody represents a different region, different perspectives. I've heard housing, case management, data collection, analytics, Violence Against Women's Act across the board. is we all have one thing in common, is we are trying to place people. And we are trying to get them to be placed for a long term, to make sure there's funding and mental health experts and physical health experts, veterans across the board. With any of these, there's always funding gaps. Yes, in Boulder, you're correct. It's going to be a Sahara Desert here in the next couple years, and we're all trying to prepare, especially with this current federal administration who's giving everybody heartburn deep down. So I'm going to always say, educate those who don't know, advocate those who don't have a high voice, and agitate the system to make solutions.
It's hard work, right? And not going to get any better. Don't know if that's new news to anyone, but I have always been a true believer in the starfish story. Does everybody know the starfish story? I'm seeing some no's. Let me tell you real quick, in 30 to 45 seconds. Little girl walking along the beach after a wildly wicked storm, and there's thousands of starfish that have washed up on the beach. So she's walking along, picking them up one by one, tossing them in. This old guy stumbles up on the beach and is like, "What are you doing? Why are you picking these up? There's no way that you're going to get all of these starfish back in the ocean, right?" And she leans down and she picks one up and she flicks it into the ocean. And she said, "You might be right, but to that one, I made a difference." And so every single day, you have an opportunity to make tiny little differences that will grow into wildly unimaginable goals and gains. So keep doing the little things because it matters.
At the risk of sounding like a broken record, I would like to reemphasize the importance of collaboration and regional coordination and using data along the way. Collaboration, coordination, and data all serve as tools of accountability to ensure that our systems are equitable and responsive and ultimately more effective in ending homelessness, which is our shared goal, everyone in this room and for everyone online, to make homelessness rare, brief, and one time. And one crucial way to do that is to work together and hold each other accountable to ultimately serve our residents in the most effective ways possible.
So I guess my takeaway, and hope folks remember that the current situation we're in is going to pass. My first year of doing this work was the 7th year that Ronald Reagan was working on dismantling HUD. Out of that grew a really beautiful movement, a nonprofit movement of affordable housing development that built millions of units of high quality housing that I would argue were way better than any public housing that had been built previously. And even though, and it was a dark time, and it lasted through 8 more years of President Bush and a dismantling of a lot of our social services, but it passed. And I've been through a couple of major recessions and massive retreat in government spending, but it'll pass. So don't be discouraged by what's happening now. Bad stuff's happened before, it's probably gonna happen again. We need to keep doing what we do every day. And there'll be brighter days ahead, hopefully in like 3 years and 8 months or so.
Who's counting? At risk of sounding like an MDHI groupie, it's not really a risk, is it? I would say use One Home. Talk to your clients. Explain why it's important, talk to every single one of your clients about it, and ask them if they want to be in it, and explain how it can help them. Because truly it can make such a difference in getting your clients housed so much faster. We see 50% of our outreach caseloads are matched to housing through One Home on a consistent basis. So that's a huge amount of people, and we weren't seeing that before because we weren't using One Home that consistently. And surprise, surprise, it works.
Echoing some of the other thoughts here, our takeaway word in Broomfield is perseverance. A lot of the wins that have kind of come through this in this last couple of years or year or so, whether that's resources or us actually making headway on some of these big picture wild goals that folks have been talking about for a long time, has been because of the ongoing, unwavering dedication of Broomfielders who did not let this issue go and didn't allow for our unhoused neighbors to be pushed to the wayside and kept the conversation going when people didn't want to hear it or did want to hear it. And now that we have opportunity, that groundwork has paid off. And so your experiences, your voices, the experiences of your clients matter and should be part of the solution, and need to be heard. And we need to keep working together because we're stronger together. And we'll keep going until we make it happen.
I would say build on existing relationships, make new ones, and collaborate. Find what's practical for the people that we're serving, and collaborate, collaborate, collaborate.
I think I already had a pretty big call to action, sorry. But I would say, you know, one of the things that we're talking about in the county is how do you innovate? What is possible in a landscape of challenges where we can think smarter, not harder? We had a meeting 2 weeks ago. I'm looking at all the Boulder people. 2 weeks ago, where we actually started exploring, like, what does co-granting look like? How does shared staff look like? How do you share that expertise? So when times are tough, Jeff, you're never supposed to age yourself. That's where innovation really can thrive and grow, because it's really getting back to the heart and really recognizing that we are smarter together than we are separate. And Sophia has a copy of a really great article about what the true definition of collaboration is, and guess what? It's not what you think it is. So if you want to send it out.
So I'll share it, because
a lot of people,
let me find it.
A lot of people think it's collaboration when it's really cooperation. And collaboration is really, I'm going to channel Mike Block here, accepting your partner's challenges as your own and stepping into that space. And I think it's time we start doing that.
Beautiful. Thank you all for participating. And I have one takeaway message. Although it may not feel like it every day, homelessness is solvable, and it's solvable when we work together. So just remind yourself that even on the toughest days, we're striving for something better for the people that we serve. And thank you all.
Well, thank you to all the panelists and everyone for participating in that conversation. And to close out this incredible day, I am going to welcome back Jason to wrap us up, and then I will close out, which is some final logistics.
I'm hearing that both the other breakout sessions have ended and that we're all starting to gather again in the big room. So I'm going to go ahead and get started with some closing comments and highlighting some of what's next for MDHI. But first, just to introduce myself again, Jason Johnson, Executive Director of MDHI. Today's been amazing. I mean, really, driving into Boulder, I was prepping myself for the hiccups. It's the first time we've ever done this. There are going to be hiccups. It's going to be little emergencies. We knew we had a good group of MDHI staff here who could handle anything, but I was just anticipating that things were going to come up. Things were maybe going to go awry. Nothing has. I guess I just jinxed myself. I'm going to fall off the stage or something. But it has really gone on without a hitch. And so I'm just immensely proud of the MDHI team. Thank you. I want to also just quickly thank today's speakers and presenters. Boulder County Commissioner Loachman, the Community Economic Defense Project, One Home Coordinated Entry Team, Housing Connector, the YELC and FlowCrit, City of Aurora Outreach Team, the HMIS team, and the 9 sub-regional panelists. This couldn't happen without all of you. And it's such a great representation of our partnerships. It's such a great reflection of the work that we do virtually, in person, in a variety of different spaces. But it's really good to all be together here in Boulder. So thank you for participating. I also wanted to quickly call out members of the MDHI Board of Directors. We have 3 of them here today, Linda Olson, Aaron Ralston, and Christina Garcia. Likely others have joined virtually, but it just means a lot that you're here. We appreciate your leadership and hope that today has been a valuable use of your time, but just really appreciate your presence. I just want to, I could spend all day calling out specific partners and talking about how valuable you are, but I got to have lunch with our friends from HUD. I'm really grateful that you're here. Thank you for spending the whole day here in Boulder with us. Appreciate it. I asked for an opportunity to speak because we have some really exciting things happening, and I wanted to share them. So I asked for some time. They made me your closer. So I just wanted to go through and highlight a few projects and initiatives that MDHI is launching this month. First, I wanted to start with looking around. There's still a few pieces of paper on people's tables. So I wanted to start with the state of homelessness. This is a statewide dashboard and report that highlights the state of homelessness in 2024. There's a QR code here on the screen. There's also a QR codes on each of your tables. I really invite you to pull the dashboard up today, this week. But I really do invite you to look at the dashboard, click around, get really familiar with it, lean into the data. It's your data. We want to hear from you. We want to be engaged with you about the data that's in this report. It has been an incredibly important lift for us to collaborate with the other three COCs across Colorado, to partner with our friends at DOLA, as well as with the coalition to ensure that this was a dashboard and report that truly reflected the state of homelessness across Colorado. This is the first time we've done this. MDHI is sort of in a habit of releasing HMIS data with point-in-time data and offering the community a state of homelessness for the Metro Denver region. But this is the first time that we're looking at it through the lens of our entire state. All of you know that homelessness does not pay attention to jurisdictional boundaries. It's not something that is unique to Metro Denver. It is something that's statewide, nationwide. So this really does represent, I think, the fullness of the full scale of what homelessness looks like across our state, and it's something I'm excited to share with you today. We'll be releasing this formally on Monday, April 28th, so you'll start to see this in your inboxes, you'll hear about it in the media, I hope, and start hearing more and more about it in the weeks and months following. But we wanted to preview this for you today, and I wanted to just go through some of the quick facts and sort of offer what this dashboard and report represents. So first, you'll see the scale of the problem. In 2024, over 52,000 people in Colorado needed help with housing. Each number is a real person with their own story, neighbors, veterans, parents, and young people. Homelessness affects every community in our state, and this is a sobering number of people with housing needs. The housing system isn't working for everyone. Colorado doesn't have enough affordable homes. To rent a 2-bedroom apartment, someone would need to work 2.6 full-time jobs at minimum wage. When housing costs this much and wages stay that low, it's nearly impossible for people to keep a home. I have to say, when I think about how tired I am at the end of the day, the thought of working another job and a half in order to afford my rent, and that's the Colorado average. So it's even more expensive in communities here in Metro Denver. So that's a really sobering stat, just what it takes to keep a roof overhead. Health and housing are connected. More than half of the people experiencing homelessness in Colorado have a disabling condition that makes daily life harder. Without a stable home, it's nearly impossible to stay healthy. Having a home makes it easier to get well and stay well. So there's some stats here. There are good demographics. There is information about folks who are experiencing homelessness for the first time. There's data about our successes, the number of people who have been moved into housing. And again, really invite you to dive into this. And we hope that looking at the data that represents the individuals you serve at a statewide will then help to sort of offer some context to what you're experiencing locally. So again, invitation to dive into this report. Again, it goes live on Monday, and you'll start to see a lot more information about this report starting then. What's cool about this as a dashboard instead of just a PDF report is that you can click around and look at various different COCs. So when we click on the dashboard to focus in on Metro Denver, you'll see that over 34,000 people have accessed services in Metro Denver during the calendar year 2024. You'll see that on average, nearly 12,000 are accessing services on a monthly basis. You'll also see, and I hope celebrate, that we've moved over 6,000 people into permanent housing. We know that number is not enough. The inflow is essentially matching the outflow. And so when we look at month to month throughout the year, the number of people experiencing homelessness is sitting somewhat flat. So there's much more to do on the housing front. But there are many, many stories as we dive into this report, as we dive into this dashboard, which I hope you'll do. This is an exciting publication for MDHI. It is, we take the information that you send us very seriously. We understand that each number represents an individual. We're very careful to understand and spend the time to understand the nuance in the data. Again, I hope that when you open this dashboard, when you click through it, when you look at the data and see the stories in this report, that you feel like it is an accurate reflection of the work you're doing across the region. I also wanted to share another publication that we released this month. This is the Metro Denver's Coordinating Community Plan for Youth and Young Adults. This is an action plan that was developed with young people for providers who serve that population. It represents a true collaboration between MDHI staff, the YELC, providers, many others, and this report, QR code here, it's also on our website, really has incredibly inspirational stories told through the voice of those with lived experience of homelessness and those young people who are navigating the system. So it's something that is, a sort of requirement as part of the YHDP through HUD, but it is so much more than a required document. It is really telling the story of what the service system for young people looks like in Metro Denver and offers some inspiration about how it can be better. I also wanted to highlight just the very beginning of this month, April 3rd and 4th, MDHI staff took 2 days and retreated to focus on strategic planning. And this was something I was really excited about. Again, I'm the new guy in the room. So it was really important for me to be with the whole team in person, have dedicated time to focus on what we have been working on and what we want to work on in the coming year plus ahead. This 2-day retreat, it was really a time for us to connect. It was a time for us to reflect. It was a time for us to celebrate what we've achieved. It was also a time for us to think about, very strategically think about what's ahead. I have up on this slide the goals and aims that guide our work. So you'll see, and you heard quite a bit about during the panel, the Built for Zero efforts. We've been talking about collaboration. We've been talking about housing access. We've been talking a lot about informing the region and our role in doing that. We've been talking a lot about equity, especially equitable access. And all of you, our partners, communities in this work, we want to make sure you're well-resourced in order to address homelessness in your communities. And so this is what guides our work at the highest level. And so we spent 2 days really diving into what it looks like every day for us to move the needle on these efforts. And we did that through something I'm sure each of you have done before, basically doing a SWOT analysis. This is highlighting the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats to our work. And I wanted to just spend a little bit of time, not to be too negative, but just talking about those threats because they're real and they're here. And I love, Jeff, thank you for offering some historical context and inspiration that things will continue and that we must continue. But we also have to acknowledge the very real threats that are in front of us. So at this retreat, we talked about the level of uncertainty at the federal level. Uncertainty causes a lot of stress. The unknown causes a lot of stress. And as we think about our plan for the years to come, it's really difficult to understand and conduct strategic planning for year 3, 4, and 5 for Built for Zero, to understand how data standards might change, to understand if the $35 million we help invest in community programming is going to be there. So there's a bit of reluctance to lean in and sort of state what will be in a year from now, 2 years from now. And so we just had to recognize that that threat was making it more challenging, more difficult for us to do this level of strategic planning that we were hoping to do in this 2-day retreat. We also talked about changes to housing and service practices locally. There are threats that communities will no longer, for example, focus on housing first. There are changes to programs that offer or want to use a tiered approach. So there are changes happening locally out there in the homeless service system that concern us and have us curious if we're going to be able to achieve the kind of results we're so proud of next year and the year after if things change radically. We've been really proud to sort of get a group of folks here in Metro Denver to focus on housing first, to know that the solution to homelessness is housing, and really point every resource possible in the direction of someone getting permanently housed. The idea that that could change concerns us and feels like a real threat. There are budget reductions at the state level, and you know, whatever industry you're in, you're paying attention to the budget gaps at the state level and wondering how it might impact you. So those are, I think Heidi from Boulder was just talking about how there was, you know, likely going to be a reduction in the amount of money that any of us can access, especially any level of new money. So we had to sort of acknowledge that that threat was real and had a lot of curiosity, especially when it comes to housing development, about what the state funding reductions could look like for our work. And then last, we had to acknowledge that there's some community fatigue that we're up against as we continue to talk about addressing homelessness. That there's, you know, we've got a communications problem, we have a need to collaborate more. We can't be speaking with multiple different voices. We have to be speaking with one voice so that the community has a level of confidence in what we're trying to achieve together. And there have been starts and stops to that. But if we cannot find the right messaging and really find a way to authentically engage in the community, they may no longer believe that homelessness is solvable like we do. So I wanted to, again, try not to be Debbie Downer up here, but these are very real threats. They're things that, as we think strategically, it would be unwise of us to ignore those threats and ignore that they are, they have the potential to derail the progress that we want to have. So we really spent time just acknowledging that those were there, that those were real, and could impact the work. But each of those also represent an opportunity. Today is an opportunity. The fact that we're all here together, that we're hearing from, I absolutely loved the sub-regional panel. I thought that was great. Thank you for facilitating that, Sophia. It is, you know, inspiring to sort of hear that in the face of these threats, we're still committed to this work. We're still committed to working together. We're still going to show up every day and do this work. And so the opportunities are very much there, even though it's sort of an uncertain, scary environment that we're working in. The strategic planning effort, it can't stop with, you know, 2 days, staff getting together in a room. Thank you, Mile High United Way, for hosting our retreat. We want to continue doing that work in partnership with all of you. So we are, we're meeting the first week of May to talk about sort of after action. Okay, we retreated, we came up with a lot of stuff. How are we going to stay accountable to the things that we discussed? And how are we going to be in communication with all of you? So expect some communication from MDHI about our strategic vision and what we hope to achieve with you in partnership throughout the 2025 and beyond. The last thing I wanted to share is, I mentioned in my introduction this morning, I've been on the job now just over 4 months. And when I took this job, I was deeply committed to the first 90 days being an opportunity to engage. I also mentioned, you know, that Boulder was my hometown. This is where I grew up, this is where I went to university, but this is also a place I have not lived in for 30 years. So I kind of have this dual experience where I'm moving home, things are familiar, I'm happy to be close with friends and family, and it all feels very new. I'm in a new role in a city that seems almost unrecognizable to the one I left behind 30 years ago. And there's a lot of relationships that I needed to begin developing. So my first 90 days, I really committed to being out in the community, meeting as many people as I could, as well as meeting internally and really getting to know the talented members of the MDHI team more deeply. So to date, I've gone on 30 tours of various different spaces, shelters, day centers, permanent supportive housing. I've just really tried to lean into that space and understand what the service system looks like. I also have met with every sub-region. So at the county level, city level, with community leaders, I've really tried to make sure that I'm not just sort of hitching myself to one county or one city, but really trying to understand the full landscape of the sub-region that makes up the Metro Denver CoC. Likewise, I've met with a number of funders, yes, the government funders, but also our private funders. Folks at the Kaiser Foundation, Denver Foundation, people that are with us in this work and investing in this work, I wanted to make sure that I met with. And then also with system partners, folks at the other CoCs, housing authorities, the VA, Community Solutions, Housing Connector, many of the folks that are here, I made it a point to meet with. And I wanted to share with you a little bit of some of the themes that I'm hearing as I'm getting to know this community. One thing that came up regularly is I don't know how to plug in. I know MDHI, but I don't know how to participate. I don't know what that relationship really looks like. I heard that the board seems somewhat isolated and somewhat removed from the work. I was asked, can you tell me, is coordinated entry working? That question came up a lot. And I also heard a lot of interest in a local funding source for housing and homelessness. People really expressing that the $35 million in HUD investments are not enough. I also heard that MDHI has the potential to serve a really important role when it comes to communications. People need help telling the story of what's working. How can MDHI elevate the stories from providers about their successes? People seem to be looking to MDHI to play that role. Likewise, again, really proud to launch the State of Homelessness Report. People want to see their data reflected in public-facing dashboards. They really want to go to one place and be able to see their data and use that data to engage with the public, with their boards, with funders. They're really looking to MDHI to provide that data back to them in a digestible way. And the last piece is that people want to see MDHI in the advocacy space. It is difficult for our government partners. It takes up capacity that agencies don't have to engage in legislative advocacy, federal advocacy, local advocacy at the level that needs to be done. And so people are really asking, can MDHI do that? Is that something MDHI can participate in? So those are just some sort of themes that came up. These were not one-offs. These were things that were asked multiple times or brought up multiple times. And so there's a handful of things happening. And again, I'm really grateful that members of the board are here The board, senior leadership staff at MDHI, and I have begun, we're at the very, very beginning, of a conversation about what MDHI or the Metro Denver CoC's board structure could look like. We need to be a CoC that fully represents this region. We need more voices of people with lived experience. We need to ensure that each sub-region is represented and represented well in the CoC. There should be space for elected leadership. There should be space for commerce, labor, faith voice, and housing. We need to have housing at the table making decisions with us as a CoC. So there is a lot for us to discuss. There's a lot for us to map out. We do not believe that we need to start from scratch. There are CoCs all over this country that have integrated and fully have the level of representation that we want to see here at the Metro Denver CoC. We want to engage with you and hear your ideas, but I just wanted to flag that we're at the beginning of that conversation about what our CoC and specifically what the CoC's leadership could look like here in Metro Denver. I mentioned strategic planning. There was more work to do, and we want to bring that work out of the isolation from a staff retreat and into community with you. So look for that engagement to come beginning in May, but likely this summer. You're all here today. We were so excited for today. This is a moment that really represents how we want to bring the community together. And so I just thank you again for participating, for being here today. As I went through the various different breakout sessions and as I paid attention to this room during the panel discussion, I could tell that you're really here. You're really here and participating and learning and taking notes and connecting with each other. We really went back and forth about what we should do during lunch. Like, we could have shown a film, or we could have had another speaker, or but we really wanted that to be protected time for you to network. And I saw that happening, so I think that was the right decision. We release the State of Homelessness report next week. And that represents an important period of time where we're really leaning into a new role, a statewide role, in partnership with the other CoCs. Again, I'm just repeating myself now, but I really am excited for you guys to dive into that dashboard. And if you have any questions, if something comes up for you that feels like is really powerful or offers an aha, please let us know. Let's stay in communication about that report. I'm going to bring Kyla back up to close us, but I do just want to share, one, I love this photo. I love being part of the MDHI team. I, made the decision to move back to Denver to help my aging mom, who lives right here in Boulder, just really was excited about what I learned about MDHI, what potential I saw with this organization, an organization that's been around for nearly 30 years, but one that I really think is on the tipping edge of doing some incredibly powerful work. I don't know if it was last, but it was near the end. We'll call it my last interview, was with the MDHI team. And it was intimidating to sort of sit in front of 30 people and answer questions, but it was also really powerful and was the deciding factor in me coming to work for this organization. So again, I just want to elevate their greatness, their expertise, their talent, not just for making today happen, but for collaborating, for facilitating, for being data informed, for really driving the work that this CoC does day in and day out. Really incredible team that I'm honored to be part of. So thank you, really good to be with you. I'll pass that back over to Kyla.
I'm
not as tall as Jason. Sorry, guys, even in boots, I'm not that tall. So again, thank you all for coming. I also want to thank you guys for supporting the cafe here. We were told at lunchtime that their profits had doubled what they normally spend during the day, and that cafe helps support the Boulder Bridge House. So thank you guys for helping give back to the community while you were here as well. We, again, thank you for taking the time out and spending the day with us today. This has been an amazing first convening. We would also love to hear your feedback. So we will be sending you all a survey, but if you, like right now, just have some on top of moment thoughts, feedbacks, things you liked, things maybe for that you would like to see at the next convening, on your way out, there's a table, there's some note cards. So please just feel free to jot down some last minute things on top of your head. Again, we will be sending out slides, the slides from today. We will also be sending out follow-up survey. So that's another way for you to do feedback. And then if you would like to keep your lanyards, please do so. If you'd like to recycle them, there is also a bin on your way out to drop those off, and we will use them. Again, safe travels, and thank you guys for all your dedication to help us end homelessness in our region.